Hey guys, this is part 14 of the story. In this story, our favorite blonde is the wielder of Rinnegan, who also happens to be the Six Path Sage's reincarnation. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share with your friends. Now, let's begin. Konoha Gates Tsunade, Mebuki and Jiraiya were standing at the gates awaiting the arrival of Naruto's team. Naruto had sent a message that they would be arriving at any time and, as such, Tsunade was by the gates with a couple of ambus ready to take Uchiha Sasuke into custody pending his trial. They were all blinded by a bright yellow flash. Once they regained their vision, they focused on the 5 shinobi standing in front of them. They looked like they had been through some battle. Only Naruto and Hinata looked like they still had fighting capabilities. The others were sweating, with their clothes thrashed. Shikamaru seemed to be limping a little, but everyone else was rather healthy. Nothing a night's rest of sleep wouldn't cure. "Where's the Uchiha?" Tsunade asked, confused. From what she understood, the mission was successful with the capture of Sasuke. Here, Naruto said, and used his Kamui to drop Sasuke into the ground. "Thank you, Naruto-san," Mebuki said, and Naruto simply nodded. Mebuki slowly approached the Uchiha with a smile in her face. "This is for my daughter," Mebuki stated, and kicked him hard in the balls, making everyone male cringe at the sight. Even Akamaru whined. "What the hell happened?" Tsunade asked, looking towards the smoking Uchiha lying unconscious on the ground. "Don't tell me he gave you all this trouble?" Tsunade said, pointing to their clothes and general fatigue. "Orochimaru happened," Naruto replied, and Tsunade's eyes widened. She had sent 3 genin up against a Sannin. Thank God no one died. "Did you manage to kill him?" Jiraiya asked, but Naruto sadly shook his head. "He used the reverse summoning jutsu to escape," Naruto explained, and Tsunade sighed. "Orochimaru really was one slippery bastard, but he would meet his end sometime. But we did kill his 4 elite bodyguards as well, another one called Kaguya Kimimaro, the last of the Kaguya clan," Naruto explained, and Tsunade nodded. "Another thing," Naruto said, and Tsunade motioned him to go continue. Orochimaru switched from vessel and can do hand seals again. He used the Edo Tensei to bring Kabuto back. "Kabuto was fighting against us and I managed to obliterate him, but that won't stop Orochimaru from doing the jutsu again," Naruto explained, and Tsunade sighed, rubbing her temples. "It doesn't matter at this point. Shikamaru, can you walk?" Tsunade asked, and he nodded. "Report to the hospital for treatment." "All of our dismissed." "Naruto, we have a council meeting to determine the fate of Uchiha Sasuke," Tsunade explained, and everyone nodded. She turned to Sasuke, who was being dragged away with an angry Mebuki running after the Anbu. "I'll see you at home, Hinata-chan," Naruto said, pecking her cheek, and left to the Hokage Tower. Hokage Tower, Council Room. Once Naruto and Tsunade had arrived at the council room, everyone was already assembled. Uchiha Sasuke was standing in the middle of the room, bound with chakra-suppressing tags and simple handcuffs. By his side was a single Anbu guarding him. Any aggressive move from Sasuke and the Anbu would end his life before the trial had even begun. "The council is in session to determine the fate of Uchiha Sasuke for the murder of Haruno Sakura," Tsunade said, and glared at the Uchiha. "What proof do you have of that?" Sasuke asked, smirking. He knew very well how to cover his tracks. He left her in nothing more than ashes and, as such, there wouldn't be any evidence that he was the one that killed her. "We have a confession from Sakura herself," Tsunade said. "What?" Sasuke asked in disbelief. "If she is dead, then how come you have a confession?" Sasuke yelled. "Naru-chan," Tsunade said, and everyone snickered while Naruto just sighed. "Here, brought her back to find out what happened," Tsunade explained. She looked at the panicking Uchiha with a look that said, "I got you now, bitch." "Do you have anything to say?" Tsunade asked, but Sasuke remained silent. "Let's wrap this up and end it once and for all," Tsunade said as she got up from her seat. "I call for the execution of Uchiha Sasuke for the murder of Haruno Sakura. Anyone against?" Tsunade asked, but was interrupted before she could go on. "You can't do that. I'm an Uchiha, you can't afford to lose the Sharingan," Sasuke yelled and smirked, thinking he got them. Tsunade just looked at him with a pathetic look. "You seem to be forgetting about Naru-chan," Tsunade simply stated, making Sasuke's eyes widen. He wasn't the last Uchiha anymore, so he was expendable. "And it was you that brought this upon you," Tsunade said, and was about to call the vote when she was interrupted by Mebuki. "If I may suggest an alternative sentence, Hokage-sama," Mebuki said with a very sick smile that sent shivers Sasuke. Sasuke was considering that maybe death would far better than what was coming. "I want his chakra molding capabilities destroyed and that he spends his life in jail. I want him to know that he will never have his revenge on his older brother. I want him to feel the desperation as he slowly withers away into old age, knowing that he would never avenge his family," Mebuki said, smiling, and even Tsunade shivered. That was one cold sentence, even worse than death. Sasuke would be locked up forever knowing that his family would have died in vain and that their killer would walk the earth free. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, Shikaku thought to himself. I don't see why not. Everyone in favor? Tsunade asked, smirking, and everyone raised their hands with the exception of Danzo, but no one gave two craps about him. The sentence will be carried immediately, Tsunade said and motioned to Naruto to destroy his chakra network. In essence, Sasuke would be a civilian when Naruto was done with him. Naruto stood up and walked calmly towards Sasuke with an impassive face. Sasuke just stood and watched his doom walk towards him. Stay away. I'm not going down like this, Sasuke yelled and struggled to get free, but he couldn't mold chakra and the cuffs were too strong for him to break. Not that he would go anywhere if he ever did break them. Naruto arrived near Sasuke, who was shaking from fear. Naruto placed his right hand over his chest and focused his chakra. Kanji started spreading through his whole body until it covered it completely. This is the same seal I used in Orochimaru during the invasion, Naruto explained and turned to Tsunade, who nodded for him to proceed. This might sting a little bit, Naruto said as he placed his right hand in the tiger seal. Activate, Naruto said and activated his seal. Sasuke screamed in pain and rolled on the ground. Naruto took the liberty of delaying the destruction as much as possible as further punishment for his actions. Around 5 minutes later, Sasuke stopped screaming and simply laid on the ground with labored breaths. If anyone looked at him, you could see his dead look. The look of someone who just had his entire life taken away and was forced to know that he would never get what he wanted. Can you confirm, Hiyashi-san? Tsunade asked. I confirm. His chakra network is destroyed. At this point he won't even be able to make a simple bunshine, Hiyashi stated, and Tsunade nodded. Bored, Tsunade said, and the Anbu kneeled in front of her. Take Sasuke and show him his home for the rest of his life. Make sure it's warm and cozy, Tsunade sarcastically said, and bowed before picking up Sasuke and leaving the room. This meeting is adjourned, Tsunade said, and everyone left the room. Konoha's IT department, temporary holding cell, prisoner, Uchiha Sasuke. Uchiha Sasuke was sitting in his bed in his cell. Sasuke had a blank look on his face and was looking at the wall as if waiting for answers. Foolish little brother, Sasuke heard and turned to look outside of his cell only to find Uchiha Itachi standing there with an amused smile on his face. Itachi, I'll kill you, Sasuke yelled and tried to break the iron bars of his cell. Quiet down before we knock you out, an Anbu said from the corridor. Sasuke looked towards where Itachi was only to find that he was gone. Maybe death would have been a better outcome. Sasuke suddenly heard a noise and looked towards the Anbu, who was knocked out and lying on the ground. We are leaving, Sasuke, a voice said from behind him. Sasuke stumbled into the ground when he saw a figure sitting on his bed. He was wearing a black cloak with red clouds, but the most distinguishing thing was his orange mask with a swirl pattern. The mask had a single hole for his right eye. Who are you? Sasuke asked, slowly backing away as far as he could. That will come at a later time, Tobi said as he absorbed Sasuke into his eyes and proceeded to warp away from Konoha. Senju compound, late that night. Back at the Senju compound, Naruto and Gaara were packing while Jiraiya was waiting for them. They were about to leave in their 3-year training trip. Even though Naruto assured everyone that he would regularly visit and that would bring Gaara, everyone was still a little sad. Hinata was also sad. Naruto told her that he would visit her every day, but that wasn't enough. They had been living together for years and they spent almost all of the day together, only to at night sleep together, sharing each other's warmth. Don't worry, Hinata. Maybe if you give it all you can join them in their trip, Tsunade said, and Hinata slowly nodded. Naruto walked out of the room with a large scroll on his back. Gaara also had a scroll trapped around his sand gourd. I guess this is it, Hinata-chan, Naruto said, approaching and hugging her. I'll see you tomorrow, Princess, Naruto said, and gave her a slow and passionate kiss. They reluctantly broke away when Jiraiya warned them that he wanted to arrive into next town before it was night. Until we see you again, Naruto said, and the three of them dashed away from the Senju compound. I'm going to miss that pervert, Tsunade said, wiping away a small tear. Akatsuki hideout. Tobi arrived at his hideout and proceeded to remove Sasuke from his dimension. Sasuke fell to the ground and slowly backed away from the man standing in front of him. Without chakra, Sasuke knew that he was powerless and that pretty much any shinobi could take him on and defeat him. Relax, Sasuke, Tobi said, slowly moving his hands towards his mask. I take care of my family, Tobi said as he removed his mask, only for Sasuke to widen his eyes and promptly faint. Otogaku. Deep in Otogaku, Orochimaru and the newly summoned Kabuto were buried deep inside a lab. In the middle of the lab, connected to several pipes and wires, was a large tank filled with a green fluid. Inside the tank was a small ball of something. Judging by the grinning face of Orochimaru, it must be something good. Orochimaru was salivating at the prospect of having the Sharingan bloodline he always craved for. Orochimaru just watched as his new creation was slowly maturing away. During his battle with Naruto, Kabuto had managed to extract a couple of vials of blood from Sasuke. Orochimaru, together with Kabuto, had engineered a perfect replica of Uchiha Sasuke, who was now slowly maturing away inside the tank. How long until the vessel is viable for use? Orochimaru asked to Kabuto, who was running simulations in a nearby computer. I estimate 3 years, Orochimaru-sama, Kabuto replied. Good, Orochimaru said, licking his lips. Sasuke had recently been brought back to the land of the living, as was staring at the figure in front of him. Kai Sasuke tried flaring his chakra, but nothing happened for 2 reasons. First, the person in front of him wasn't an illusion, and second, he couldn't manipulate chakra in the first place, so he couldn't break the illusion even if he tried. Father? Sasuke slowly asked towards the figure. The person standing in front of Sasuke without the mask had short, black hair that reached to his shoulders and onyx-colored eyes, with visible creases below them. You can't be, you're dead, Sasuke said, shaking. The person in front of him couldn't possibly be, and yet he was. Uchiha Fugaku was standing in front of Sasuke impassively looking at him. I assure you that I'm very real, Sasuke Fugaku said in his typical cold and emotionless voice. Why didn't come back to Konoha if you were alive? Why did you leave me all alone in there? Sasuke yelled. He needed answers, and he needed them now. I'm sorry, Sasuke, but neither of those things were possible. I'll explain everything, just listen, Fugaku said, and Sasuke slowly nodded. For starters, Itachi didn't simply kill our clan to test his strengths, as he told you. If he ever had to measure against me, he would lose. The reason he decided to kill our clan was because of orders. We are Uchiha's elite. We deserve to control Konoha and rule it, unlike the Senjus. 14 years ago I summoned the Kyuubi, and the Uchiha clan was supposed to take control of the village after the confusion was over, Fugaku said. However, that blasted Namikaze beat me to it. He was able to wound me and seal the Kyuubi into his newborn son, Senju Naruto. A couple of years after the Kyuubi incident, the Sun Daime and his advisors became suspicious about the origin of the Kyuubi's attack and decided to investigate. At that time, we were preparing a coup d'état to take control of the village. They decided to plant a spy inside our clan, and who better than Itachi, who was a peace-loving shinobi? Understand so far? Fugaku asked, and Sasuke slowly nodded, taking everything in. Itachi began working as spy for the Sun Daime, providing information every time our clan gathered. I knew that our clan would stand no chance if the village was prepared to our attack. We had lost our element of surprise only because Itachi chose Konoha over his own blood, Fugaku said, gritting his teeth. I had to come with a solution to save our clan, and the only choice was to kill them all, Fugaku said. You call saving our clan killing everyone? Sasuke yelled, and Fugaku sighed. Sasuke Fugaku started our clan is alive and well, Fugaku said, and Sasuke froze. What do you mean? Sasuke asked, confused. This thing was confusing him to hell, and nothing was making any sense. Zetsu, Fugaku said, and a plant-like shinobi emerged from the ground. This is Zetsu, a member of the Akatsuki and my personal servant. Fetch a clone, Fugaku ordered, and Zetsu formed a white clone who stood there waiting for orders. Fugaku made a small sign, and the Zetsu clone touched Sasuke and immediately took his form. Fugaku proceeded to kill the clone, but his shape and appearance remained. These clones are special. They can replicate the DNA structure of anyone they touch, and even if they die they remain with it. Not even the more skilled medics can tell the difference. I use these clones and replace the whole Uchiha clan with fakes. Their Sharingan is also functional to some extent, Fugaku explained. Then that means that Sasuke didn't finish, but Fugaku completed the blanks. That everyone is still alive and in hiding. Your mother, uncle, cousins, everyone, Fugaku said, and Sasuke smiled before scowling again. Then why did you leave me there all alone? Sasuke asked in a low voice. He was happy that his clan was alive, but what would that make for Itachi? I'm sorry, but we had no choice. Itachi decided, in all his mercy, to spare you while he wiped out the clan. While these clones are foolproof, they aren't made for battle. They are very weak, and we couldn't risk it letting one in your place. The same way we could never retrieve you from Konoha, it would raise too many suspicion, Fugaku explained, and Sasuke slowly nodded. What about Itachi? Sasuke asked. Ah yes. That fool, Fugaku started. Did you know that I learned from Uchiha Madara and that I'm working on a plan designed by him? Fugaku said, and Sasuke's eyes widened. Naruto's grandfather? Sasuke asked, and Fugaku nodded, chuckling. Now that was a twist I wasn't expecting. He never said anything about having a son. Fugaku said, sighing, during my reign as clan leader I often had a clone take my place in Konoha so I could focus on our plans outside of the village. One time, Itachi contacted me thinking I was Uchiha Madara. He confided in me everything without knowing that he was talking to his own father, Fugaku said, laughing. Itachi, the so-called genius, was fooled in the end. You will deal with him when the times comes. I think of no better punishment than making him live with all the guilt and remorse when in fact he never killed anyone. Once I find you strong enough to deal with him, I'll let you kill him. He was a traitor to his own clan. He chose Konoha instead of his own blood and flesh, Fugaku snarled. I can't do anything. I can't manipulate chakra anymore, Sasuke said, looking down. No need to worry. I can easily fix that once I inject you with some of Zetsu cells. They will boost your power and fix any wound you may have, Fugaku said, and Sasuke smirked. So Sasuke, Fugaku started, will you stand by Konoha or your own blood? Fugaku asked. I stand for our clan. Itachi will pay and the Uchiha will rise. What is a god? Is it a being that is immortal? If that is true, you might say a certain type jellyfish might be considered a god as it has the potential for immortality. Is it a being that knows everything? If that's so, then the Yamanaka could be considered gods as they have the ability to read thoughts and control others' actions. Is it a being that can give and take life as he pleases? If so, then Pain might be considered a god as he can give life to those recently departed. Is someone that can be at all places at once? Then Naruto could be considered a god with shadow clones and Hirashin. There are different religions through the world, but in ours a god is considered someone who can be everywhere, omnipresent, know everything including people's thoughts, omniscient, and someone who is all-powerful. With these three requisites the god can do anything he wishes. And now, Naruto is about to achieve just that. Land of Iron. 2 years had passed since Naruto, Gaara and Jiraiya had left Konoha in their training trip. Hyuga Hinata had also recently joined them since she had finished her training with Senju Tsunade earlier. Hinata was a true prodigy in medicine but also in combat. Armed with her Byakugan eyes, she could instantly diagnose any type of injury or disease anyone carried. Her eyes seemed to improve her chakra control beyond normal standard of ordinary shinobi. Her chakra control and reserves were on par with Tsunade, as was her knowledge of medical techniques and Tsunade's monstrous strength. She also received the slug contract from Tsunade as she had no one to pass it to, thus making Hinata Tsunade's errand apprentice. Hinata had also surpassed both Anko and Shizune in poison making. Not much of a surprise when you grow up leaving with a guinea pig in which you can test out all of your poisons. And the fact the guinea pig didn't die from them was just a plus. Naruto thanked the heavens when he noticed that Hinata remained the sweet and caring girl even after training with Anko. Naruto shivered at the thought of living with a Hinata, Anko style. Considering Naruto and Gaara, they both advanced with Jiraiya as their teacher. While Naruto could best Jiraiya anytime in terms of raw power, he didn't have yet the finesse in other areas. That's why they would sometimes take on a few missions so that they could gain valuable experience. Currently it's almost done and we find Naruto of 16 years old, almost 17, walking to their hotel after another of training day. I'm home, Naruto said with a tired and strained voice. Hinata looked up from her notes. The first thing you would notice about Hinata's changes would be the purple diamond figure in the middle of her forehead. Hinata had grown into a very beautiful woman. She was around 5 feet 7 inches, with a slim figure worthy of a goddess. She had long and toned legs, smooth skin and a well-developed chest, around D-cup in size. Hinata had retained her straight, Heim-style haircut, but she let her hair grow to waist length. The short strands that frame her face remained, but were now shoulder length. She now wore a new attire comprised of a loose-fitting, long-sleeved, dark blue and white zip-up jacket with dark blue over-mesh armor with black pants and black, low-heeled sandals. On the back of her zip-up jacket she had the symbol for yin and yang. Are you feeling well, Naruto-kun? Hinata asked, worried. While Naruto didn't show any external signs of a disease, she was a trained medic and easily spotted his slight discomfort. Is something wrong? Jiraiya asked him, making Gaara look at Naruto concerned. I don't really know, Naruto said, flexing his body. My chakra feels weird, Naruto stated as he released a small amount. His chakra seemed to be unstable and uncontrollable at this point. Let me take a look, Hinata said and activated her Byakugan. She was surprised when she saw Naruto's chakra acting up. It was like the chakra had a mind of his own and was all over the place in his body. It seemed to be affecting his muscles, bones, but it seemed more concentrated around his eyes. You are right, your chakra is acting weird. Lie down so I can properly check, Hinata stated, and Naruto sighed. I don't feel, Naruto was saying, but didn't manage to finish as he simply fell to the ground completely unconscious. It was extremely rare for anyone to simply drop to the ground while talking. Naruto, all of them yelled and rushed to check up on him. Hinata was the first to arrive and was already performing a diagnosis with her eyes, trying to find what was wrong. She didn't understand. His chakra network was extremely active, too active for someone who had just passed out. His chakra seemed to be changing and rewriting his chakra coils. Get back, Hinata yelled, and everyone jumped back just in time to avoid a small shockwave of chakra that radiated from his body. His once deep blue chakra was now light silver, like the moon. His chakra capacity seemed to be increasing as this new chakra seemed thicker than his old one. His chakra felt so peaceful and yet strong, so unrestrained and yet controlled. Eventually the chakra calmed down and everyone let out a sigh of relief. Naruto groaned as he slowly regained his conscious, but he felt somewhat stiff. Hinata could see his new chakra working overtime in his muscles. He slowly opened his eyes and everyone's breath hitched. His once blue eyes, or red one if was using the Sharingan, now had a ripple pattern in them. His eyes were silver with several concentric circles around his pupil, who seemed to have shrunk. Naruto's eyes had shifted into the Rinnegan, the eyes of the gods. The eyes of the Sage of the Six Paths, the father of all ninjutsu. Father. Kurama Shukaku whispered from their host's mindscape. There will come a time when all of you will be lead down the right path, Kurama. Remembered the last words of his father just as he passed away. Is it Naruto? Kurama thought, looking at the fainted form of Naruto. That's the... Hinata thought to herself as she gazed upon the new eyes of Naruto. Rinnegan Jiraiya thought, gobsmacked. It's true that he had seen them before, but he never saw one activating itself in front of him. Naruto groggily opened his eyes only to pass out again. Hinata approached him and did a quick checkup only to notice that he was only sleeping, but he seemed to be running with a small fever. She took him to their bedroom. Please be alright, Hinata whispered, clutching to his arm as she fell asleep next to him. Naruto's mindscape. Naruto woke up in his mindscape with Kurama looking at him curiously. Kurama was still trying to figure out how in the world would Naruto be able to awaken the Rinnegan. The eyes of his father, how Naruto did that, he couldn't even start to understand. In the other hand, the Sage of the Six Paths always talked in riddles when addressing the Nine Baijuo. Kurama, what happened? Naruto asked as he groggily got up. His head seemed to be on fire. Forget that, his whole body seemed to on fire. Although it didn't hurt, it felt somewhat annoying. TSK, Kurama scoffed. Do you even know what you just unlocked? Kurama asked and sighed at the oblivious face of Naruto. That's why I asked furball. The last thing I remind is talking to Hinata-chan, Naruto explained with a tick mark on his eyes. You just unlocked the Rinnegan. My father's eyes, Kurama yelled, and Naruto's jaw dropped. He blinked, and blinked again as his brain rebooted and he processed the words he just heard. He quickly approached a nearby lake that he had created when he changed his mindscape to a more comfortable place. He immediately noticed his eyes. Instead of the traditional deep blue or blood red, they were now a dark silver with concentric circles around his pupil. He looked around and noticed that he could see chakra to a whole different level. While not in a detail that would rival with the Byakugan, he seemed to be able to see chakra everywhere. Kurama had red chakra while everything around him had a dark silver tone. Naruto withdrew chakra from his eyes and noticed how it receded back to his usual Mangekyo, then to his Sharingan until it stopped in his deep blue eyes. Naruto had unlocked the next level of his eyes. The final level of the Sharingan, the Rinnegan. The eyes of the gods that belonged to the Rikadu Sennin, father to all shinobi. The most revered dujutsu in all existence. Of three great eyes, the Rinnegan was the most prized and powerful. On another perspective, the Rinnegan appeared to be the natural evolution to the Sharingan, and, as such, it was only supposed to be two great dujutsus. Though Naruto wondered why never any Uchiha had unlocked it before. My eyes keep changing. The moment I've mastered my Mangekyo another one pops out, Naruto said, sighing. Although he was very glad for this power boost. Ungrateful brat. Many people would kill just so they could put their hands on those eyes, Kurama reprimanded the boy. I know, Naruto said, waving his hands in defeat. So Naruto started in a sing-sang voice as his eyes instantly flashed into the Rinnegan. What can these eyes do? Naruto asked giddy. Why would I know? Kurama replied. You said that these eyes belonged to your father, Naruto said in a deadpan voice. Yes, I did. But that doesn't mean I ever saw him training them, Kurama said, sighing. I know a couple of powers, but the rest are unknown to me, Kurama explained, and Naruto nodded. I only know that it gives you control over all the elements. The Deva path and Preta path Kurama said in Naruto was drooling. Just the prospect of having natural affinities for all elements was good enough for him. Paths? Naruto asked confused. Yes. The Deva path allows you to control gravity and the Preta path allows you to absorb chakra, Kurama explained, and Naruto's jaw dropped. His eyes were the best thing that had ever happened to him. You said there were more? Naruto asked, giddy to know the rest. It's best that I don't tell him about summoning the Geto Mazo. I hope he never learns about it. Some things are best locked away for all eternity, Kurama thought to himself before thinking what to answer to Naruto. There are more powers. The reason he was called the Sage of the Six Paths was because he had more of these paths, but I only know of those two, Kurama said, and Naruto nodded. Why did I faint? Naruto asked, trying to find some answer. You fool. You think that the Rinnegan is a simple Dujutsu compared to the likes of the Sharingan or Byakugan. You think that just because your eyes change, you suddenly can use all 5 elemental natures? Kurama rhetorically asked. The awakening of the Rinnegan changes the host's body so they can withstand their power. It's the reason why your chakra is now silver. The reason is to, right now, your muscles are being rebuilt to be stronger than anyone else's, Kurama explained, and Naruto took the information like a sponge. I understand, but why did it activate so suddenly? Naruto rhetorically asked. I mean, I did nothing out of the ordinary today, Naruto stated, but Kurama was deep in thought. You should check the Hyuga's and Uchiha's clan libraries. They might have information regarding it, as both clans are Dujutsu wielders. As of now I might have a theory, Kurama said, and Naruto motioned him to go on. As you know, my father had 2 sons, each one inheriting a piece of his power. The older brother, Ken, started the Uchiha clan while the younger one, Shin, started the Senju clan. Kurama started. Both Uchiha Ken and Senju Shin had descendants through the ages, disregarding the half-blood Uchihas, coming down until the last of each clan. Both your mother, Senju Kushina, and your father, Uchiha Minato, were the last of each other's clans. You achieving the Rinnegan might come from the fact that both the Senju and Uchiha's blood are together in you. Were it once divided in my father, it came together in you, Kurama explained. It's ironic, in fact, Kurama said, chuckling. Both clans started with my father and they seem to end with you. With Tsunade being past reproducing age, you are the last of both Senju and the Uchiha clan, the last descent of the Sage of Six Paths, the last leaf of a once mighty tree, Kurama said in a sad voice. If I ever have any kids, do you think they will inherit my Rinnegan, or will my power be split between them? Naruto curiously asked. It's a good question, though only time will tell. Even though I'm sad to see my father's line reduced to a single member, at least the last member bears the same eyes as the original. Like I said, it's ironic. It feels like everything was meant to end with you, as both clans are extinct and the last member bears the Rinnegan, Kurama said, chuckling sadly. I guess Naruto muttered, but you still didn't answer my question as to why it suddenly activated, Naruto stated, and Kurama got deep in thought. Building on the premise that the Rinnegan is achieved with both Senju and Uchiha blood, it's possible that could only be achieved once your body had fully matured. Moments earlier, before you fainted, I noticed that your yin and yang chakra seemed to be in perfect balance with each other, Kurama said. Look at it this way. Your body was too young to match the power of your soul. What I mean is that your yang chakra was weaker than your yin due to the fact that your body was still developing. Today must have marked the point where both energies balanced each other out to perfection, thus leading to the activation of your eyes, Kurama explained, and Naruto nodded, taking everything in. How do you come up with all this stuff? Naruto asked, surprised the fox's knowledge and reasoning. I'm just the good, Kurama boasted, puffing his chest out, making Naruto stare at him. Get going, your mate needs you, Kurama said, and Naruto left this mindscape. Naruto and Hinata's room. Naruto returned from his mindscape and found himself lying in his bed. He looked outside and the moon was shining in the sky. He looked down to see Hinata's asleep next to him, clutching his arm furiously. Naruto brushed a few strands of her hair to the side so he could gaze upon her beautiful and angelic face. It was then that he noticed dry tears in her cheeks. Hinata-chan, Naruto whispered gently, running his hands through her soft cheeks. He bent down and placed a small kiss on her forehead, making her stir. She slowly opened her eyes, adjusting to the small light of the room, and noticed Naruto awake and staring deeply into her eyes. Naruto-kun, Hinata choked out and hugged him fiercely while crying. I was worried about you when you fainted like that, Hinata said, and Naruto simply hugged her, showing that he wasn't going anywhere. You know me, Naruto said, breaking the hug. He brought his forehead to hers and locked eyes with her. I don't stay down for long, Naruto said, looking at her with caring eyes filled with love. I talked with Kurama, it was just a byproduct of my Rinnegan activating. I'm not going anywhere soon. "I'm staying with you forever," Naruto whispered and gently closed the gap between them. Their lips brushed together at first until they locked in a deep passionate kiss. All the while, Naruto was caressing her face, feeling her smooth, flawless skin. Naruto and Hinata broke the kiss and simply stared at each other. Their eyes locked with each other's, each bearing all the love they felt for each other. There was nothing that could split them. They had been made for each other, like yin and yang. Naruto hugged Hinata and rolled on the bed until he was on top of her, never breaking their gaze. Hinata was mildly blushing. She had no idea how much Naruto liked to see her blush and giggle. He was in love with everything about her, her blush when embarrassed, her smile, laughs. He loved everything in her, she was perfect for him. Hinata was a very brave kunoichi, but what he loved most was her caring attitude to anyone, but even more to him. Naruto broke his gaze and kissed her again. Their lips brushed together, each one enjoying the warmth and softness of each other's lips. Naruto playfully licked her bottom lip, asking for entrance. She gladly opened her mouth, making their tongues clash. Naruto explored her mouth, leaving no corner alone. They were so enticed by the sensation that they didn't stop until they needed some air. They both split, gasping for air. "Are you going to keep staring?" Hinata teased, breaking Naruto from his dreams and making him chuckle. "Maybe," Naruto playfully replied, kissing her again. Naruto started running his hands through her back, all the way into her smooth thighs. Naruto broke the kiss and started kissing her neck. He slowly brought his right hand up, feeling every inch of her body, her flat stomach, her firm breasts. He slowly unzipped her jacket and threw it out of the way. Underneath she had her mesh shirt and Naruto hesitated. Hinata noticed it and herself leaned up and removed her mesh shirt, remaining in nothing more than a purple bra. Their hearts were running a mile per minute. Naruto just stared at her. They might have lived together for a few years, but they still had their privacy. Hinata felt bold and took his hand and placed it on her breast. Naruto just stared at her until he gently squeezed her breast, enlisting a smile of satisfaction from Hinata. Her breasts were perfect, perky D cups. Naruto ran his hands through them, gently squeezing them, feeling how soft and warm they were. Naruto unclipped her bra and threw it out of way, leaving the twins out. Naruto used his thumb to twirl her pink nipples. Hearing a small groan, Naruto figured she liked it and continued his ministrations. While Naruto was playing with her breasts, Hinata was slightly dazed. That feeling was incredible that she just wanted to savor it and enjoy it as long as she could. Naruto had never touched breasts in his life, so he decided to experiment a little bit. He placed a hand on each one. He squeezed both breasts and heard a small moan as he continued to try out new things with his toys. Hinata frowned when Naruto detached himself from her breasts, but that was short-lived when Naruto brought his mouth to her right nipple and began to suck on it, gently at first but then a little more rough. Hinata threw her head back, raising her chest at the new sensation. She was on cloud 9 and Naruto was only working on her breasts. His wet tongue felt so different in her nipples, but she enjoyed it very much. She gasped as he alternated to her other breast and used his hands to keep both busy. Hinata didn't want to be the only one naked between both of them. She hugged Naruto and rolled him around until she was on top of him. "You're the one with too many clothes now," Hinata teased, and Naruto didn't need to be told twice. He quickly removed his jacket and shirt, leaving his torso naked. She admired his physique, his broad shoulders, muscles and toned chest. She leaned down and ran her hands through his chest, feeling his muscles. "You are perfect, Hinata-chan," Naruto said, wrapping his arm around her and bringing her lips to his own. They met in a love-filled kiss. Once they broke apart, Naruto carefully observed Hinata's body. Even though they were shinobi, she was perfect. No trace of scars or other cuts, her skin was smooth and flawless. Hinata sighed blissfully as Naruto started planting butterfly kisses everywhere. Naruto traced her jawline and began descending, kissing both breasts and going down onto her flat stomach. Naruto reached his next obstacle, her pants, since they still had clothes from the waist down. Naruto looked up, asking for permission, to which Hinata nodded. Naruto quickly removed her pants, leaving her in just purple underwear that matched her long removed bra. Naruto trailed both her thighs, leaving kisses all over until he reached the middle section. Naruto noticed that her panties were soaked, that they almost see-through. Hinata felt an urge to cover herself from embarrassment, but she didn't get the chance as Naruto gave her a long lick through the fabric. Her breath hitched and she let out a loud moan of pleasure. "You're so wet, Princess," Naruto teased, looking at her embarrassed face. "SSH, shut up," Hinata said between breaths. Naruto chuckled slightly before slowly removing her panties. Naruto took a good look at her womanhood and it was dripping with her arousal. Hinata's body tensed as Naruto approached her, but she quickly forgot that when Naruto's mouth latched itself to her core. Hinata's back lifted from the bed as Naruto began licking her moist entrance. Naruto noticed that Hinata seemed to shiver every time Naruto gave her a long lick. Naruto was happy that he could pleasure his lover with just a simple touch. Her breathing was harsh and uncontrollable. She reached down and grabbed Naruto's hair, needing to hold onto him, unknowingly pushing him deeper. Naruto continued licking her over and over, hearing the moans that filled the room, licking around her nether lips, clit, and driving his tongue into her. This was an all-new experience for her and she loved it. And Hinata moaned as Naruto drove his tongue inside her wet folds and started exploring. Naruto's tongue swirled inside her womanhood, trying to reach everywhere. Naruto removed his tongue from her folds and detached himself from her. He looked up to see Hinata's clouded face. From the pleasure, Naruto gently licked a small nub of nerves, making Hinata gasp and moan even louder. Naruto was happy he placed a silent seal, otherwise they would star on Icha. Naruto resumed his ministrations on Hinata until he felt her start shaking and he assumed she was close. Just that feeling of Hinata squirming under him made him want to devour her even more. Hinata was losing her mind, she could barely think at this point. "And Naruto. Fine Gana." Oh god, Hinata didn't get to finish as she yelled and came all over Naruto's face. Her hips raised from the bed as she gripped Naruto's hair hard as she came down from her orgasm. Hinata collapsed on the bed, breathing hard and with sweat rolling over her body. Her body seemed to be glowing under the moon's light. Naruto licked the remaining juices from Hinata and rose to meet her face. "You are delicious, princess," Naruto said, wiping his mouth with his forearm as someone who just finished a meal. Hinata looked down to see the bulge in his pants. Hinata had already seen Naruto all naked with her Byakugan eyes, and she knew how big he was. It must feel discomforting having his hard member trapped. "Naruto-kun, I want you," Hinata whispered as they broke their kiss. "Are you sure?" Naruto asked. He loved her more than anything and he didn't want to pressure her in any way. Hinata simply nodded and rolled herself to be on top of him. She undid his pants and threw them into the ground, including his boxers. His member was now free and standing at full attention. Naruto wrapped his arms around her and rolled so he was on top and positioned his 8-inch hard member at her wet entrance. He glanced towards Hinata, who was running her hands through his back as Naruto began pushing in. Naruto sighed as he felt her barrier and knew that there was no way around it. He suddenly pushed his dick into Hinata's pussy, getting a wince from her. She sank her nails into Naruto's back, but he bit back the pain. Naruto leaned forward and kissed her to lessen the pain of having her virginity taken until he rested inside her. She was very slippery and yet still tight. Hinata never felt so full of something in her life. It felt amazing to be connected to the person she loved above all in this world. Naruto didn't move, allowing Hinata to adjust herself to his member. "You can move now," Hinata said, and Naruto nodded, slowly withdrawing his member before pushing back in. This feeling was indescribable to him. It felt unbelievably good. She was really tight, wet, hot, and it felt great. He kept up a moderate pace until she was adjusted. Naruto moved slowly at first until he began to speed up, rocking his hips. "Ugh, it's amazing," Hinata moaned out. Hinata's breathing was labored, as was Naruto's. "You are perfect, Hinata-chan," Naruto groaned out as he continued his thrusts. Naruto would speed up when she moaned louder, as he liked doing it faster. "Faster," she said, and Naruto complied, speeding up. "Harder," she said a while later, and once again, Naruto complied, burying himself completely inside of her and receiving a moan of approval. He could hear his skin smacking hers as he continued to make sweet love to the woman he treasured. Naruto moved his head up and kissed her deeply, never stopping his love-making. Naruto could feel the sweat form on his body, and looking down at Hinata he saw that she was also sweating. The room became hotter and the sounds of moaning and the loud slaps from their skin could be heard. Naruto felt Hinata's walls starting to clamp up on his member even harder, meaning that she was close. Naruto sped up his thrusts as he was also close to his orgasm. Hinata wrapped her arms around Naruto's back and her legs around his waist, pushing him deeper. "Naruto-kun, I'm coming," Hinata yelled as she climaxed. Naruto felt her walls tighten and he held onto her tighter, shooting his sperm deep inside of her. Hinata did her birth control jutsu so she didn't get pregnant yet. Naruto fell to the bed next to her, both taking deep breaths. Naruto kissed her one last time. "I love you, Hinata-chan," Naruto whispered, embracing her. "I love you too," Hinata replied as Naruto pulled the sheets over them and they fell into a deep sleep in each other's arms. Next morning. Within the dark room, a few beams of light managed to sneak through the windows and managed to hit Senju Naruto. Naruto started stirring. He felt he didn't get much sleep last night and he knew the reason when the memories came rushing into him. He looked down to see his princess clinging to him with a happy smile on her face. Naruto smiled and began to gently run his hands through her soft hair. No matter how messy it was for last night's activities, she remained beautiful. Her hair was so soft and silky, he just loved feeling her hair. Hinata began to stir as she felt someone gently stroking her hair. She instantly knew it was Naruto. She simply snuggled closer to him and sighed happily. "Morning, beautiful," Naruto whispered, kissing her forehead. "Good morning, Naruto-kun," Hinata replied, sighing blissfully. "Good night?" Naruto innocently asked, making Hinata giggle. "Best night of my life," Hinata replied, drawing circles in his chest. After all, they were both still naked and Naruto did enjoy having her breasts pressing against his chest. "I'm glad," Naruto said, and both fell into a comfortable silence, enjoying the warm feeling they got from being together. Naruto-kun," Hinata called out, and Naruto hummed in response. "Please tell me you placed some silent seals," Hinata said, blushing. "Why do you ask?" Naruto asked teasingly. I think I was a bit loud last night," Hinata mumbled beneath her breaths, making Naruto chuckle. "That was the most beautiful sound I've ever heard, and it's reserved to me, so don't worry," Naruto replied, and Hinata nodded. She really didn't want to deal with Jiraiya if he found out they shared more than a bed last night. "Oh shit," Naruto thought when he heard snickering inside his mind. Naruto paled when he recognized the voice. He forgot to cut Kurama's connection last night. "I'm so proud of you, my boy," Kurama yelled from within his mind. "Please tell me you didn't watch," Naruto asked. "I did more than watch, I recorded it," Kurama replied, grinning like a fox. "Why would you do that? You don't even have a gender. How could you even get turned on?" Naruto asked, confused. While Kurama had a male personality, he really didn't have any of the organs to back it up. Kurama was a Baizhu, he didn't organs or bones or flesh, he was just chakra with a mind. "So, it's teasing material," Kurama replied, and Naruto's sweat dropped. "You okay, Naruto-kun?" Hinata asked as she watched Naruto space out. "Yeah, I forgot to cut Kurama off, so we did have an audience," Naruto said, rubbing the back of head, and Hinata blushed, but she didn't want to think of that right now. "You know," Naruto started, "Jiraiya and Gaara are probably worried about us. We have been here since last night and it's already noon," Naruto said, and Hinata pouted. "5 more minutes," Hinata pouted, making her best puppy dog face. "How about we go take a shower?" Naruto simply asked. "Did it together?" Hinata asked, blushing. Naruto just looked at her. He didn't think of that when he asked. Naruto got an evil glint of his eyes. "What are you implying, princess?" Naruto asked in a teasing voice. "And no, nothing," Hinata stuttered, and Naruto chuckled. He pushed the sheets away from them and picked up Hinata from her bed, carrying her bridal style into the bathroom. When they were finished, they could both say it was the best shower they ever had. Outside. Jiraiya and Gaara were running through taijutsu katas trying to improve Gaara's taijutsu when they heard the door unlock. They stopped their training to see Naruto and Hinata walking out together. Naruto seemed fine, as if nothing had happened. "How are you feeling, Naruto?" Jiraiya asked, but Naruto waved him off as he sat down to eat something. "It's nothing. Everything that happened was because of my Rinnegan activating, I'm fine." Naruto replied, and Jiraiya sighed in relief and turned to Hinata, who seemed to humming a tune while eating some bread. "I'm so proud of you," Jiraiya yelled and started dancing around the table like a headless chicken. "He's mental," Naruto thought as he looked at his godfather. "You finally became a man," Jiraiya said, crying anime tears. Gaara choked on his food, Hinata dropped her bread, and Naruto splashed water all over the table. What?" Naruto asked, getting up from the table. "Don't try denying it, kid," Jiraiya said, crossing his arms. "I know that glow when I see it," Jiraiya said, pointing to Hinata, who was blushing and looking away. "Have you ever heard of privacy?" Naruto asked, yelling at his godfather. "So, tell me," Jiraiya started, licking the tip of his pen and taking out a notebook. "How was she?" Jiraiya asked, and the temperature dropped several degrees. Even Gaara backed away, with Shukaku telling him to run for his life. "I thought you stopped being a pervert, Jiraiya-sama?" Hinata sweetly asked. Jiraiya turned around, dropping his notebook and crying for mercy. Hinata punched him in the face so hard that even the ground shook. Jiraiya was sent flying out of the hotel and crashing into the ground, making a decent crater. "I forgot Bachan taught Hinata-chan her super strength," Naruto thought to himself, and agreeing to never piss her off. Training grounds. All 4 of them ate their breakfast and came outside to train again. However, once they all got outside, they stopped and stared at Naruto as if waiting for something. "Let's see it," Jiraiya said, and Naruto's sweat dropped and channeled chakra into his eyes. Everyone watched in fascination as Naruto's eyes became red with 3 black domos, then they started spinning until they became his eternal Mangekyou Sharingan. Then it stopped. Naruto channeled more chakra into his eyes and they pulsed with a silver color. His eyes started spinning outwards, shrinking his pupil and forming several rings around the pupil. I still don't believe I get to see another one, Jiraiya said, getting interested by Naruto's eyes. They seem to be radiating power. Wait, Naruto said, stopping Jiraiya in his tracks. Another one? Naruto asked, surprised that Jiraiya had already seen another. Yes. During the Second Shinobi War back in Amiga Clear no Sato, I met 3 orphans from the war. One of them was called Uzumaki Nagato and he had the Rinnegan. It was the reason why I stayed behind 3 years to teach them, Jiraiya explained, and Naruto nodded. Where's he now? Naruto asked, getting curious. If what Kurama said was true, then there was a lost Senju and Uchiha member. Dead, Jiraiya sadly said. I got a report that they didn't survive the war despite my training, Jiraiya explained, sighing, and Naruto nodded. According to Kurama, the Rinnegan is achieved by having both Senju and Uchiha blood in one vessel, Naruto said, and Hinata raised an eyebrow. It makes sense. Hinata started from the legends. It says that the Sage of the Six Paths had 2 sons, each starting the Senju and Uchiha clans. It makes sense that uniting both bloods you get the original, Hinata explained, taking into account everything she learned about biology. Although yours is different, Jiraiya said, bringing his hands to his chin. Nagato's Rinnegan was permanently activated. He was never able to disable him, much less go through the Sharingan and Mangekyou stages, Jiraiya said, and Naruto raised an eyebrow in confusion. Strange. Usually when you can't fully disable a Dujutsu it means that it doesn't belong to the user to begin with. Like Kakashi's Sharingan, Naruto explained, but Jiraiya stopped him. Are you saying someone took his eyes out and gave him the Rinnegan? Jiraiya asked, confused. I don't know. But if he couldn't deactivate his eyes then they didn't belong to him, Naruto said. Let's forget it. Not to sound cold but he's dead, Naruto said, and Jiraiya nodded. Did he even had silver chakra? Naruto asked, and Jiraiya raised an eyebrow. My chakra is now silver colored instead of blue, Naruto said, and started unleashing chakra. Instead of the usual deep blue, ocean-like, colored chakra, his chakra was now silver, like the moon. No, he had blue chakra like everyone else, Jiraiya said, and Naruto nodded, further sustaining his claim that this Nagato's Rinnegan didn't belong to him. So, what can those eyes do? Jiraiya asked. The only thing he knew about those eyes is that it allowed Nagato to see chakra and use all 5 elements. According to Kurama, I now have affinity to all elements. I can manipulate gravity and absorb chakra. There are a few more but Kurama only knows of those, Naruto explained, and Jiraiya's jaw dropped at the other powers. Can you show us the gravity manipulation? Gaara asked, curious. Sorry but I don't know how to use it, Naruto said, rubbing the back of his head and making Jiraiya sigh. Do you have any chakra paper? Naruto asked, and Jiraiya nodded, taking out a few papers on the storage scrolls. He gave one to Naruto, who channeled chakra through it. Naruto's paper flew off his hand and started to levitate in the air. The paper split into 4 identical pieces, and one burned into ashes, the other crumbled into a tiny ball, another became soggy, and the last one disintegrated into dirt. This proved that Naruto now had affinity for all elements and, judging by the floating paper, affinity for gravity. Analyzing the paper, Naruto was happy that his lightning affinity remained high after his chakra changed. Looks like you were right, Jiraiya said as he watched the paper react. Let's start with the basics, Jiraiya said, and picked up a leaf from a nearby tree and gave it to Naruto. Channeled chakra through the leaf until it crumbles to dirt, Jiraiya explained, and Naruto started training his earth element. Later he would move on to his water element since he not already knew how to use it. Naruto channeled chakra through the leaf and the poor leaf was instantly vaporized. No, Naruto yelled to the heavens. What's wrong? Jiraiya asked, confused. My chakra control went to hell. I spent so much time working on it, Naruto said, crying anime tears while everyone else sweat dropped at his antics. He had just awakened the most powerful Dujutsu known to mankind. Of course there were bound to be some changes. Next day. It was already dark and we could see Naruto and Hinata jumping from rooftop to rooftop. Their objectives were the Uchiha and Hyuga libraries. The Uchiha compound was being guarded by Anbu 24/7 to prevent any theft of jutsus or other information, while the Hyuga clan had their own members guarding it, and with their Byakugan it would be hard to sneak in, but Naruto and Hinata had already done it before. Their mission was to find any information they could about the Sage of Six Paths and his Dujutsu, the Rinnegan. They hastily approached the Hyuga clan, remaining at a safe distance from their walls so they didn't get caught. A pair of white and another of silver-colored eyes were the only visible thing in the midst of the darkness that covered Konoha during the night. Naruto looked up at the sky to see it cloudless. He could see the endless number of stars shining away in the sky. He also noticed that with his Rinnegan he was able to see a spherical barrier surrounding the entirety of Konoha. He never knew that Konoha housed such sensing barrier around it, but he figured it was a very well-kept secret. Hinata used her Byakugan and analyzed the patterns of the 4 guards guarding the Hyuga clan's walls. It was a shame that Naruto didn't have his Mingekyu when they last entered this compound, otherwise he could just warp right into the library. Hinata noticed that the guards only used their Byakugans every 5 minutes for a routine check. Once the guards deactivated their eyes, both Naruto and Hinata jumped in front of a Hyuga guard. The last thing he saw was a pair of blood-red eyes. Naruto placed a genjutsu on the guard, making Naruto and Hinata invisible to him. If the other guards found this guard on the ground, it would raise the alarms and that would screw their attempt. Naruto made them invisible as they easily walked up the walls and sneaked into the compound. Naruto had gained most of his chakra control back during the previous day with a couple hundred shadow clones. Interestingly enough, his chakra control became even better than it was before, allowing him to even use genjutsu with ease and making it possible for him, a Jinchuriki, to use some healing techniques. They walked down the walls and Hinata still had her Byakugan activated. Naruto couldn't see through walls, so he left that to Hinata. Naruto used his Kamui and phased both through the walls until they reached the library. All of the scrolls were protected so that only the Byakugan could read them, another form of protection against anyone wishing to steal the secrets of the Hyuga clan. Naruto stood by the doors, watching for any stragglers that may pass by while Hinata and a couple of her clones skimmed through the scrolls, diaries and records. Hinata couldn't believe what she was reading. In the whole library she didn't find anything not Byakugan related. It was Byakugan this and Byakugan that. She didn't find a single reference to any type of elemental jutsu. Hinata shook her head in defeat at her clan's blindness. The last time she was here, they were only coming to the Gentle Fist scrolls, but now that she was reading these scrolls she couldn't believe. They actually thought that the Byakugan was the greatest dojutsu of all, since everything in the library was directly tied to it. They were in for a change when she and Naruto deployed their plan that they had been cooking for years since Hinata's exile for her clan. "This is a waste of time," Hinata whispered, placing the scrolls. Her former clan didn't even know the origins of the Byakugan. "Anything?" Naruto asked in a low voice, but Hinata shook her head. "Nothing. Everything is this whole library pertains to the Byakugan. There's nothing about any other dojutsus," Hinata explained, and Naruto placed a hand on her shoulder and both swirled away from the compound, heading to the Uchiha compound next. Uchiha compound hash. As the Hyuga clan's library had been a bust, Naruto and Hinata moved into the Uchiha compound. Both of them stopped a few yards away from the walls where they could sense 5 Anbu guards in the area. "That one is a sensor," Naruto said, pointing to dragon-masked Anbu who was completely still. While both Hinata and Naruto had very high stealth abilities, since they had extremely good chakra control bordering on perfect, not even they could bypass a sensor. Sensors could pick up even the lightest chakra around them. "We have to knock him out," Naruto said, and Hinata nodded. "I have just the thing," Hinata said, taking out a single senbone from her storage seals on her wrists. "New poison?" Naruto asked, chuckling. "Yes. It will knock him out for a couple of hours and he won't remember anything that happened," Hinata said, and activated her Byakugan. The sensor seemed to have felt her eyes activate but slumped into the ground as the senbone hit him right in the neck. The Anbu never heard a noise, nor he felt anything. The moment the senbone hit his neck, the poison got deployed in the bloodstream, automatically knocking him out. Naruto phased underground and popped out in front of each of the Anbu, placing every one of them in a genjutsu. To the Anbus, nothing had ever happened and they continued guarding the walls. Naruto and Hinata calmly walked into the compound and made their way into the library. They already knew the layout of the library, so they made their way into the history section. Both of them searched for almost an hour for any type of scroll related to the Rinnegan, until Naruto found one that might answer what he wanted. History of the Sage of the Six Paths. The Sage of the Six Paths, the father of all shinobi in every way of the word. He was the first human to ever be able to manipulate chakra. He was the savior of all humanity when they were faced against an overwhelming enemy. Not much is known about him, but we know that he existed, lived and died like any other shinobi today. I think we should start as to why he became such a legend. There was once a time in which humanity seemed to live in harmony without wars or hate. But that time was short-lived as, one day, a huge monster appeared out of nowhere, the Ju-Ubi as it was later on called. This creature created tsunamis, crushed mountains, it split the continents apart. It's believed that today's world layout is a direct result to this creature's work. Nothing could rival its power. Mankind tried to fight, but they were squashed like bugs. When all hope seemed lost and mankind seemed to have accepted their fate, a new hope rose. A single man appeared and faced the great Juubi alone. Their battle was fierce and destructive, but, in the end, a single man was able to defeat the Juubi and trap it inside himself. That man was the Sage of Six Paths. During the remains of his life he traveled the world, spreading the ninju doctrine, or ninjutsu as today it's called. When his time came, he knew that once he died the terrifying beast would be unleashed upon the world again, and, this time, there wouldn't anyone else to save them from this creature. The sage made a decision that would change this world's fate forever. He split this creature's chakra into 9 different vessels he himself had created. Using the yin energy he created the bodies of what later on would be called the Baizhu, and by adding yang energy, the sage breathed life into them, making them living beings. Once he split this creature's chakra into the 9 vessels, he created the moon to trap the creature's body inside it, locking it away for all eternity. And so the great monster was defeated and the sage himself passed away. This is the beginning of the story of the greatest hero of our history. The story of the Sage of the Six Paths, the story of the first mortal to achieve powers of a god. Nothing that I already don't know, but I wonder about these yin and yang energies, Naruto thought to himself, placing the scroll back in its place and continuing to look around. Naruto continued to look around more until he found another dusty scroll that, by the looks of it, it was very old and not much used. Naruto tried to open it, but the scroll didn't budge. Naruto activated his Rinnegan and saw a small seal applied to it. "Fuin, Kai," Naruto said, and the seal glowed before it disappeared, opening the scroll. The Sharingan. The Sharingan, one of 3 great dojutsus known to mankind. The trademark of the Uchiha clan and their members. It's said that the Sharingan's predecessor was the Rinnegan, as legends say that Uchiha members are descendant of the Sage of Six Paths himself. These eyes are blood red with 1 to 3 black domos, depending on how mature the eye is, around the pupil. The Sharingan houses many powers: the ability to copy any type of taijutsu, ninjutsu or genjutsu, the ability to see chakra, the ability to predict the enemy's movements, and the ability to induce the enemy into a genjutsu with a small glance. However, some say there is another level to it. Some speak of the legendary Mangekyou Sharingan. No much is known about this level or how to achieve it. Only 2 members ever achieved this level, Uchiha Madara and his little brother Uchiha Izuna. With those eyes, Uchiha Madara was able to fight Senju Hashirama, the leader of the Senju clan, wielder of the Makuten, to a standstill. Naruto continued looking down through the scroll that showed how to use the Sharingan and some other low-level techniques to use with them. He finally reached the end of the scroll and found one last jutsu with several warnings. Izanagi, S-rank Genjutsu. Izanagi is the ultimate genjutsu of Uchiha clan. When cast, the user removes the boundaries between reality and delusion within their personal space. To a certain degree, this allows the user to control their own state of existence, but it is normally only active for the briefest of moments. While the user remains physically real while fighting, this technique is capable of turning any occurrence, including injuries and even death inflicted upon them, while the technique is active, into mere illusions. Whenever the user receives a fatal injury, he or she automatically fades away as though they were an illusion all along, and then returns back to reality, physically real and unscathed. This technique is based on the creation of all things technique used by our ancestor, the Sage of the Six Paths. The process involves the administration of imagination, the spiritual energy, which forms the basis of yin energy to create shape and form from nothingness. Then, through the application of vitality, the physical energy which forms the basis of yang energy, the sage would breathe life into the prior form. Thus, a technique with the power to turn imagination into reality was born, known as Izanagi. While this technique is much weaker than the creation of all things, it can be used by those of Uchiha blood with their Sharingan. However, it comes with a heavy price. In exchange for the brief control of reality that it allows them, the Sharingan with which Izanagi is cast becomes blind. For this reason our clan has labeled it a Kenjutsu. Naruto read this with his eyes widened. He already knew that his eyes were strong, but to be able to create form from nothing and breathe life into it. "I assume that's how you were born?" Naruto asked his partner, who nodded. The sage really was something else. Being able to create and give life is meant for gods, not mortals, Naruto thought to himself, if he ever would be able to do the same thing with his Rinnegan. While the Uchihas would become blind due to not possessing the Rinnegan, theoretically Naruto would be able to use these techniques to the extreme without any type of backslash. I think we have everything, Hinata-chan, Naruto said, and she nodded, placing everything back in place. Hinata did one last scan around the compound as they were about to leave. Wait, Hinata called out as she seemed to find some type of storage underneath the Uchiha's main hall. There seems to some type of room beneath the main hall, Hinata called out, and Naruto raised an eyebrow. Let's check it out, Naruto said, and both walked out the library and into the main hall. They quickly reached the main hall. Where's the entrance? Naruto asked to Hinata, who had her Byakugan blazing and searching the surroundings, analyzing that room's layout. I can't seem to find it. The whole area is shrouded in chakra, Hinata explained. Can you place us directly on top of the room? Naruto asked, and Hinata nodded. They both walked into the main hall and stopped in the middle of the room. It's directly beneath us, Hinata said, pointing to the ground. How much further down? Naruto asked, and Hinata estimated the length. About 5 meters, Hinata answered, and Naruto nodded. Naruto hugged Hinata and used his Kamui to sink underground until they reached the room. It took them only a couple of seconds until they touched the ground inside the room. Everything in the room was dark that even Naruto and Hinata could barely see with their dojutsus. Kaden, Gukakyu no Jutsu, Naruto said, and sent a very small fireball towards to nearby torches. He used it a couple more times until the whole room was lit. They looked around and the room had nothing more than a table with many chairs around it. He looked towards the other corner. In the middle of another small room was a single stone. The stone was surrounded by 2 torches, one in each side, and it appeared to be old, very old. Naruto still had his normal Sharingan activated from using his Kamui and started reading the tablet. What are you doing? Hinata asked, confused. That tablet is blank, Hinata said, and Naruto raised an eyebrow. It seems that only the Sharingan can read it, Naruto replied as he could see the text perfectly and started reading. Congratulations on unlocking the Sharingan, my fellow descendant. The Sharingan, the Dojutsu of my eldest. With it, you are capable of many things. The base Sharingan has 3 levels. With 1 Tomoe. Naruto read again what the Sharingan could do, until he reached the last section of the tablet. But there is more to the Sharingan. My eldest seems to have unlocked another stage to it. He called it Mangekyo Sharingan. With it, his power is far greater than the standard Sharingan. With these new eyes that he unlocked, he's able to Sodrig's SDFSFW Jikra the DSFSDFSDF. Naruto got confused as he suddenly couldn't read anymore. That part of the tablet seemed to be some random letters all scribbled together. Try using your Mangekyo to read it, Kurama suggested, and Naruto didn't have anything to lose. Naruto activated his Mangekyo and the random letters seemed to rearrange themselves to form coherent phrases and words. He's able to access powerful ninjutsus and other types of illusions far greater than the ones provided by the standard Sharingan. With his new eyes he's also able to see better and with far more detail than before. According to him, he unlocked these eyes when he was sparring with my youngest. What can I say, their training battles always seem to escalate and I'm the one who has to fix everything. I wrote this tablet at my eldest request. He wants to leave something of him for his future descendants, but something that only his descendants can read. I also decided to leave, in this tablet, how it all began. It was asked Adverf State Urifeg this again, Naruto thought to himself, sighing. He decided to activate his Rinnegan to see if he could read it. Surprisingly enough, all the text in tablet became visible. It was a time of war. Mankind was constantly at war, endless bloodshed from all sides that seemed to stop at nothing. When someone thought that the war was over, it was still the beginning. My mother, Kaguya Otsutsuki, sought a way to end the war and all the pain and loss of life that came from it. In our home there was a tree. It was a tree of such magnificence and magnitude that some considered it to be a god. This god tree easily outshone mountains in terms on height. It would never lose any leaves or seem to grow old and wither. According to the scrolls, the god tree has always been there and our records go back thousands of years. According to the scrolls, every millennium this tree would generate a small fruit. While the scrolls clearly said that it was forbidden to eat it, my mother was desperate with the war looming outside of her lands. She decided to consume this forbidden fruit of the god tree. With it, she became able to manipulate chakra and allowed her to single-handedly end the war that seemed to plague the lands. Years passed and the flame of war never once ignited again. Then I, Hagoromo Otsutsuki, was born. I inherited the same type of power my mother possessed and along with it, I received my Dojutsu which I called Rinnegan. The years passed and I grew older. But, as time passed, the god tree's desire to reclaim its power also rose. The god tree decided to strike against my mother in order to reclaim its lost power. That was what people would later on call the Juubei. It was a gruesome battle, but in the end, I was able to seal him inside of me, temporarily defeating it. When I reached my last years, I knew that once I died, the Ju-Ubi would be set free, and I couldn't allow that to happen. I split the Ju-Ubi's chakra into 9 vessels: Shukaku, Mutatabi, Isabu, Son Goku, Kokuo, Seiken, Chomei, Gyuki, and finally Kurama. Once I was finished, I sealed the Ju-Ubi's shell in the moon, which I created with my creation of all things. If you are reading this, then you also bear the Rinnegan. Take it as final wish from me. If there is still war, then find a way to stop it. I may not have grown with war, but I felt its effects during my travels. War brings nothing but death, pain and suffering to both sides. It's a never-ending cycle of hatred. Good luck, my fellow descendant. Naruto stood silent for a few seconds, taking in everything he read. He now knew everything: how it began, why it began, and the sage's final wish. If there is peace, then I'll find it. I'm not gonna run away, and I never go back on my word. That is my ninja way. I promise you, old man, Naruto said, getting up with his Rinnegan blazing. Did you know all of this, Kurama? Naruto asked his partner, who was silent. I never knew. The old man never told us how it began, and he was always cryptic with his words, Kurama replied, and Naruto nodded. I have everything I need, Naruto said, placing a hand on Hinata's shoulder. Let's go home, Naruto said, and they both disappeared in a flash. Naruto now knew what he wanted to do, what he needed to do, his goal in his life. He would bring peace to his war-plagued world. He would break the chains of hatred and lead to the world to true peace like his predecessor had wanted. Time skip 6 months. 6 months had gone by, and Naruto threw himself into training even harder than before. Both Hinata, Gaara, and Jiraiya had asked him what had happened when he read the tablet. Naruto just replied that he knew everything and that he found his goal in life, and he would leave it at that. While the Sharingan's powers seemed to be awakened during time of high stress, the Rinnegan was extremely different. The Rinnegan's powers seemed to come naturally to Naruto, like walking or breathing. That's the reason why Naruto could already use all of his 6 paths. When he discovered his animal path and summoned a large creature, Kurama fainted in his mind, thinking Naruto had summoned the Geto Mazo from the moon. Poor fox. After the whole event of the summoning, Kurama decided to warn Naruto so he didn't accidentally summon it. Kurama explained to him that some things are best left alone and not be tampered with. In the first week, Naruto learned his gravity manipulation and learned how to use his Deva path. The next week he discovered the animal path. During a spar with Jiraiya he discovered his Preta path. 1 month later he discovered his Asura path, and another week later he learned human path. During a mission he learned the last of his paths, the Naraka path, or so he thought. During the mission an innocent victim was killed because Naruto didn't reach him in time. Naruto didn't know what came to him. He just started going through hand seals automatically, as if he had already known them. Naruto unlocked his 7th and final ability, the Outer Path. The Outer Path gave Naruto control over life and death. With it, Naruto could bring back anyone that had died, and he also learned of a new technique he could use. He finally understood why the sage was called the Sage of the 6 Paths. Naruto could create 6 paths, 6 clones or bodies, and each one could use one of the paths. Naruto discovered the metal which his fan was made of when he himself had created the same material. The material seemed like steel and yet was stronger and lighter. Naruto thought he had already mastered all of his paths and began training in the last thing he could think of, Yin and Yang releases and their last form, Yin Yang release. Do you think it's wise? Jiraiya said to Naruto regarding what he was about to do. These things are reserved for gods, Naruto, Jiraiya warned. What is a god, Jiraiya-sensei? Naruto asked, and Jiraiya was thrown back by his question. If a god is someone that can live forever, then I'm a god. If a god is someone that knows everything, then I can be a god. If it is someone who can be anywhere, then I'm a god. And if it is someone who is all-powerful, then I am a god, because there is nothing I can't do, Naruto replied, looking at the sky. Naruto looked down at the ground in front of him. In the ground were 5 blood vials and a locket of someone's hair. You are not a god, Naruto, Jiraiya yelled at his godson. Maybe, maybe not. It doesn't matter. I can do this if I wish, it's my choice, Naruto replied. I know, I'm just trying to warn you that once you cross this line you can't go back. While you have this power, you must be responsible with it. This isn't some S-rank jutsu that you can throw around. You're dealing with life and death here. While I would like nothing more than to see them once again, you can't just be using it like nothing. Remember that there is a balance to be maintained. Jiraiya explained, and Naruto was locked deep in thought. I've made my choice, Naruto said, and Jiraiya stood silent. Maybe it's jealously of me, or maybe it is just necessary. I can think of 3 reasons as to why I should do this, Naruto said and gathered his thoughts. 1. Is to stop Orochimaru from bringing them back. 2. They all sacrificed their lives to protect our home, and 3. I made a promise to her a couple years ago, Naruto said. My dream is to become Hokage, Naruto said, and Jiraiya smiled, but Naruto said and Jiraiya listened, it's also to bring peace to this world. My ancestor died dreaming that the world his mother created would last, Naruto explained and started looking at the sky again. Look around, Naruto started. Tsunade is at Konoha's throats because of what happened back during the invasion. Iwa is still revengeful because of the Third Shinobi War. War is a never-ending cycle of hatred and I will be the one to break it. If there is such thing called peace, I'll be the one to achieve it. I won't back down and I won't give up, because that's my ninja way, Naruto said, and both Hinata and Gaara smiled at his words. Those words? Jiraiya thought to himself, remembering the first book he ever wrote. If I can't find the answer to peace, then maybe I'll entrust it to you, Jiraiya said, ruffling Naruto's hair. Let's do it, Jiraiya said, and Naruto nodded, crouching on the floor and picking up the first blood vial. On my otan, Bankususozo, Naruto said, and started concentrating of the blood inside the vial. The vial started levitating between Naruto's hands. Naruto's chakra flared and his eyes glowed. The glass vial was instantly vaporized, leaving only the blood floating in the air. Naruto's hair was flapping wildly as he began to work on his technique. The blood seemed to stay still until it began to become agitated. All of the blood seemed to compact into a small brownish ball with small indentations. Naruto started spreading his hands, the small ball started glowing and expanding. Everything around Naruto sparkled with life, grass and trees grew from the ground, flowers blossomed. Naruto was radiating life all around him. Incredible, Hinata said, amazed to what Naruto was doing. Naruto was creating life out of nothing. The grass never looked so green as the flowers, more beautiful. This was the work of a god. The ball was getting bigger and bigger and was showing 5 protuberances from it. Naruto kept focusing on it. He was calm and relaxed. Naruto barely felt his chakra getting spent. Kurama and Shukaku just watched in fascination the true power of the Rinnegan. It was the first time they were experiencing the yin-yang release and it felt wonderful. The 2 upper protuberances expanded outwards, reaching beyond half a meter. The 2 lower protuberances continued extending further, reaching 1 meter at the end of these protuberances. 5 small other ones started growing out. These small protuberances were in fact fingers, and the larger ones arms and legs. The last protuberance seemed rounder and sturdier and was in fact a head. Naruto continued his jutsu and everyone watched in fascination as Naruto was creating a human body out of nothing. The previous blood was just a map, so Naruto knew what skin color to choose, if he was tall or short and if he was a he to begin with. The procedure started slowing down as the skin started taking a light tone. Small mounds of flesh started growing out in the middle of chest, indicating that this one was female. Hair started growing out of her head until it reached her waistline. It suddenly turned into fiery red hair. The process slowed down even more and everyone could see a woman lying on the grass. She had a slender, but feminine build, fair skin, fiery red hair. She was Senju Kushina, Naruto's mother, and she was back. The process ended and her body started breathing suddenly. Naruto stood up to admire his handiwork. In front of him was his mother, almost back to life. Almost, because, while he had created her body, he still needed her soul. Summoning Jutsu, soul retrieval, Naruto said, going through hand seals. This technique was a variation of the Edo Tensei. This technique would retrieve any soul from the pure world and implant it in a vessel of Naruto's choosing. Naruto could easily control souls with his human path due to the Rinnegan. Naruto caught the soul and slowly pushed it inside of Kushina's body. Kushina took a very deep breath and went back to her normal breathing. Kushina started stirring and slowly opened her eyes to show her ocean deep blue eyes like Naruto. Welcome back, Kasan, Naruto said, helping her sat up and adjust to her surroundings and new body. Naruto? Kushina asked, looking at the blonde in front of her. She looked around to see the pervert, Naruto's girlfriend Hinata, and an unknown redhead. Where am I? Kushina asked. Easy, I brought you back. You need time to adjust to this body, Naruto said, helping her get to her feet. I fulfilled my promise, Naruto said, giving her a thumbs up. I promise I'll find a way to make our family whole again. Kushina smiled as she remembered back when she was summoned via the Edo Tensei. Thank you, Naruto-kun, Kushina said, hugging him and letting a few tears drop from her face. Naruto just hugged his mother, glad to have her back for real. There are a few other I need to bring back. Why don't you sit and watch, Naruto said, and Kushina nodded, sitting down and watching Naruto pick up the hair sample. On my otan. Bam Susozo, Naruto said, and Kushina's jaw dropped when she saw Naruto's eyes. It was the Rinnegan. Naruto went through the same procedure and it was another woman. This person had fair skin with dark long eggplant hair slightly past her waist and side bangs framing her face down to her shoulders. She looked almost like Hinata and she was Hyuga Hana, Hinata's mother. "Where am I?" Hana asked as she woke up. Naruto helped her get up and handed her to Hinata, who was fighting back tears. "Keikaka-san," Hinata said, stuttering, barely containing her tears. Hinata had suffered so much since her mother passed away after giving birth to Hanabi. "Hina-chan," Hana said, looking at the girl, no, woman in front of her. She felt like looking at a mirror. The woman in front of her reminded her of her daughter Hinata. "Is that you?" Hana asked, and Hinata nodded, jumping and hugging her mother fiercely. "How am I alive?" Hana asked, confused, and Hinata sat her down and started explaining everything that happened since she died. Naruto went through the same procedure and brought back the rest of his family, Senju Hashirama, Senju Tobirama and also Uzumaki Mito. Now was the time for last member of his family, his father Namikaze Minato. Naruto created his body and let him on the ground. Creating his body was easy compared to where his soul was. Naruto had created a way to retrieve his soul, but it would only work for Rinnegan users. Snake. Boar, ram, rabbit, dog, rat, bird, horse, snake, shiki, fuge, and Naruto said, clapping his hands and summoning the death god where his father's soul was. Naruto turned around to face the death god. Naruto used his human path and introduced his hand inside the Shinigami's stomach and removed the single soul that resided there. The soul of his father was now free of the death god's clutches. Naruto ended the jutsu and introduced the soul into his father's vessel. Minato took a deep breath and groggily opened his eyes. Father? Minato asked, staring at the person in front of him. "That's just creepy, my father thinking I'm his father," Naruto thought to himself. "Welcome back, To-san," Naruto said, and Minato's eyes widened. "And Naruto," Minato said, shocked, looking at the man in front of him. If he really was Naruto, then he did grow up some since the last time he saw him. "It's me, old man," Naruto said, chuckling. "Come," Naruto said, and helped Minato into his feet. "I'll explain everything," Naruto said, and everyone went back to the hotel for some long overdue explanations. With their help, I'll achieve true peace, Naruto thought as he also walked inside. Man, Tsunade is going to have some rough time when they come home. It was another beautiful and ordinary day in Konoha. The sun was starting to come up, and inside the Senju compound we find Senju Tsunade slowly stirring. 3 years had passed since Naruto, Gaara and Jiraiya had left. Her apprentice Hyuga Hinata had joined mid-trip. Tsunade was extremely happy with how Hinata had turned out. The girl was a sponge. Everything Tsunade would have to teach her, she would absorb in an instant. Hinata was able to read multiple books on different subjects, and by morning they would already be done. When Tsunade had asked her how she did it, she simply replied Kage Bunshine and left a gobsmacked Tsunade behind. While she couldn't create thousands like Naruto, she could create some solid 50 clones, which was more than enough to read a couple of books. Hinata had also developed a few more poisons and medical creams. In fact, Hinata had asked permission so that she could set up a small store in the Senju compound so that she could sell her poisons and healing creams to anyone who wishes to buy them. Hiyashi had really been a fool when he expelled her from her clan. He had let go of a very rough diamond. To simply discard such a valuable asset, but above else his own daughter, like garbage. When Hinata had told her the whole story, Tsunade wanted to go on a rampage into the Hyuga compound. In the end, Hinata managed to calm her down with a bit of sake, and a couple of Juuken strikes. When Hinata told Tsunade what both her and Naruto had planned for the Hyuga clan, she just smirked. Those poor fools would never know what hit them until it was too late. "I'm late," Tsunade said, getting up from her soft bed. She looked back towards the other side of the bed and sighed. She really missed the old pervert, even though she wouldn't outright admit it. They are due back any day now, Tsunade thought to herself. The whole compound was going to be full again soon. "Kage Bunshine no Jutsu," Tsunade said, and 3 clones popped to existence. "Go to the office and get started on the paperwork," Tsunade ordered, and the clones paled but complied with the original's orders. "Now for a long bath," Tsunade said, going into the bathroom. Tsunade's office. The original Tsunade arrived at her office and joined her clones in handling the massive paperwork that seemed to grow during the night. Until this day, she didn't know where all of these papers came from. Sure, she had to read every mission report, but most of those were standard ones that didn't even require much attention. Mission report: Capture Tora mission. At 10:00 hours in the morning of the 10th day of the 4th month of the 1432 year Ninja, we, Team Ebisu, were assigned the Capture Tora mission. It took 1 hour to track down our objective and we found him hiding in a small alleyway. We tried a stealth approach but Toro managed to sense us proceeding to run away from the location. After an hour of running after the target, Sarutobi Konohamaru managed to flank the target from the front, making the target run to the left, where Udon had a trap prepared. The target was captured and Team Ebisu proceeded to bring it to the Hokage's office for delivery and mission conclusion. "Why the hell do we even have reports on D-ranks?" Tsunade asked, looking at Team Ebisu standing in front of her. "I believe it's practice for when the Genins start taking on higher missions," Ebisu stated matter-of-factly. "In the meantime I suffer with all of these worthless reports," Tsunade yelled, waving the papers in front of them, making everyone cringe at the sound. "Spike! You can always hand over the hat to Naruto Nichan," Konohamaru said, and everyone was taken aback by that statement. "I thought you wanted to be Hokage?" Moegi asked, confused. "Of course. Naruto Nichan, we will the Rakudaime Hokage and I'll be the Nanadaime Hokage," Konohamaru said, pumping his fist into the air. "He's due back anytime now, isn't he?" a voice asked as he entered the room. Grandpa, Konohamaru said, greeting his grandfather, Sarutobi Hiruzen, who walked into the room smoking and pipe. He didn't seem to have changed much in 3 years. He still had white hair and beard and he was wearing civilian clothes. He was wearing a brown haori and beneath it he had a grey kimono. To anyone else he would look like a normal person, weakened only by age, but it was far from the truth. While old, he still remained a very powerful shinobi. "How is everyone?" Hiruzen asked, getting a hug from his grandson. "Just fine, Hokage-sama," Ebisu replied, pushing his glasses. Ebisu was a elite jounin of Konoha. Although many would doubt his claim, no one really bothered with it. He was a jounin sensei and they hardly got missions with higher ranking than a B rank. "And answering your question, yes. Naru-chan, Jiraiya-kun and Gaara should be back anytime now," Tsunade said, smiling. "Jiraiya-kun, is it?" Hiruzen asked with a smirk. "Yes, it is. You've got a problem with that, old man?" Tsunade asked back with a smirk of her own. "No. I'm just glad you finally accepted the poor man after all the beatings you gave them," Hiruzen said, chuckling. "He deserved every one of them," Tsunade said, crossing her arms. "I'm hurt, princess," a voice echoed through the room. Everyone turned around to see the space swirling and Jiraiya standing in the middle of the room. "I thought you loved me," Jiraiya said with a mock hurt, wiping away fake tears. "Perv-kun," Tsunade said, jumping into Jiraiya's arms and giving him a big sloppy kiss. Ebisu went flying into a nearby wall and passed out with blood loss when he saw Tsunade's breast squeezing against Jiraiya's chest. The old man Hokage managed to remain his posture and simply watched with a small smile. He was glad his two students got together, even if it took them a couple decades. The space kept swirling and next came Gaara. Gaara had grown quite a bit and was now taller, almost matching Naruto but surpassing Hinata. He wore full-length dark trousers, with a pair of laces on each leg, respectively a few inches below the waist and the knees, a long-sleeved crimson coat with flaring hemlines on the front and the back. A gray holster vest held in place by a single strap over his left shoulder and by two buckled belts. Gaara had also stopped using his gourd to keep the sand and began using special seals Naruto made. These seals were different from the standard storage seals. While in the storage seals you channel chakra through it and everything pops out, these were different. Gaara needed to channel chakra constantly to keep the sand flowing outwards. When he wanted to stop he could just cut the chakra flow. The seal worked like a floodgate, and with Gaara having a shukaku inside of him, chakra wasn't a problem. "Gaara," Tsunade said, and Gaara greeted everyone. The next person swirling into the room was none other than Hyuga Hinata. Hinata had grown into a very beautiful woman. She was around 5 feet 9 inches, with a slim figure worthy of a goddess. She had long and toned legs, smooth skin and a well-developed chest, around D-cup in size. Hinata had retained her straight, Heim-style haircut, but she let her hair grow to waist length. The short strands that framed her face remained, but were now shoulder length. She now wore a new attire comprised of a loose-fitting, long-sleeved, dark blue and white zip-up jacket with dark blue over-mesh armor with black pants and black, low-heeled sandals. On the back of her zip-up jacket she had the symbol for yin and yang. "Tsunade-sensei," Hiruzen-sama, Hinata said, greeting everyone politely. The swirling seemed to be coming to an end and we see a last figure standing in the middle of the Hokage's office. This person stood at 6 feet tall. He had bright spiky yellow hair that reached his waist, with shoulder-length bangs framing the sides of his face, covering most of his right eye. He was wearing his traditional orange pants and black sandals. He was also wearing a sleeveless black shirt with a chest plate over it. On his back, he carried a wide fan with 3 blood-red domos on each side. It had a long handle with bandages wrapped around the base. The main part of the weapon was light brown with the edges being black. He was Senju Naruto and he was back from his trip along with Jiraiya, Gaara, and Hinata. "Yo," Naruto said, grinning at everyone in the room. Everyone just stared at the man in front of them. They had a hard time believing that the kid Naruto grew into this man in front of them in just 3 years. Hiruzen could feel the aura Naruto was releasing and it pleased him to know that Naruto had grown stronger. "Long time no see," Naruto said, breaking everyone from their trance. "Naruto ni-chan," Konohamaru said, looking at Naruto. "Hey brat," Naruto said, ruffling Konohamaru's hair. "Nice to see you again, Naru-chan," Tsunade said, smothering her grandson in a hug. He was running out of oxygen and was forced to use Kamui to get off. "I bet you are stronger now, Naruto ni-chan," Konohamaru stated, pumping his fist into the air. "You bet, Konohamaru, I've learned a lot of new jutsus," Naruto said, grinning. "Oh, teach me some," Konohamaru said, getting giddy. The last time he asked Naruto for a jutsu he got the Rasengan. Naruto hummed, touching his chin, thinking what he could teach Konohamaru next. "Show me your Rasengan," Naruto said. "Yosh!" Konohamaru yelled, placing his hands in a cross-sign shadow clone jutsu and a single clone popped into existence. Naruto's eyes blazed, bringing his Sharingan into life. Now that he grew up he looks even more like him, Sarutobi chuckled to himself, smoking on his trusted pipe. "Good stability and pressure," Naruto said, observing Konohamaru's Rasengan spinning in his hand. "Since that using the shadow clone and the Rasengan only took about 5% of your total chakra capacity, I guess I can teach you the next version," Naruto said and extended his right hand forward. Konohamaru jumped in the air with excitement and began focusing on what Naruto was going to do. Naruto's chakra started coming out and started swirling. It formed a normal Rasengan until it started expanding further and further until Naruto created an Adama Rasengan. "That's just a Rasengan," Konohamaru said, disappointed. "Wrong. This is called a big Rasengan and it's about 4 times stronger than the normal Rasengan. You need to increase the chakra output while maintaining stability and compression," Naruto explained, and Konohamaru nodded. "Any questions?" Naruto asked. "Why is it silver?" Konohamaru asked, admiring the shining silver ball of destruction spiraling in Naruto's hand. Well, Naruto started not wanting to reveal the real reason why his chakra was silver. "Something happened during my training trip that turned my chakra color into silver," Naruto said, and Konohamaru shrugged his shoulders. "Thank you. See you later, Naruto ni-chan," Konohamaru said, and Team Ebisu left the room, leaving Tsunade, Hiruzen, Jiraiya, Gaara, Hinata and Naruto. "I hope you got stronger," Tsunade said towards the 3 teens in front of her. "Please, they are so strong that it isn't even funny," Jiraiya said, crying anime tears. He had to work and train so hard back in his youth and now 17 years old can be strong as him. It just wasn't fair. "How would you rank them?" Tsunade asked. She already had a pretty decent idea regarding Hinata, but the other 2 she would be drawing blanks. "Both Hinata and Gaara are cage-level shinobi. Hinata could defeat you but she would lose against me as she doesn't have the same raw power," Jiraiya explained. "Though that girl can be deadly with her needles and poisons if it wasn't for my sage mode that can heal poisons," Jiraiya thought. "Gaara is pretty much on the same level as me when I'm not using my Senin mode," Jiraiya explained, and Tsunade nodded. "And Naru-chan?" Tsunade asked, and Naruto smirked while Jiraiya scoffed. "I don't even know," Jiraiya said, looking at our favorite blonde. "What do you mean you don't know?" Tsunade asked, confused with her temper rising, thinking the pervert was playing with her. "Exactly that. What's the rank above cage level?" Jiraiya asked, and Hiruzen's jaw dropped. The brat started comparing himself to gods. But Hinata beat that idea out of his head quick enough, Jiraiya said, and Naruto scoffed. "It makes sense. After all, ramen is food for the gods," Naruto said, chuckling, and Jiraiya's sweat dropped. "All kidding aside," Tsunade said. "I don't know Tsunade Haim. I honestly don't know. I don't stand a chance against him even with using my Senin mode at full power. I mean, he took me, Gaara and Hinata at the same time and he still won without even getting scratched," Jiraiya said, and Tsunade's eyes widened. "That's not possible," Tsunade said in disbelief. "Can you send your Anbu outside for this?" Naruto asked, but Hinata stopped him. "I already took care of them," Hinata said, pocketing her senbon. They all focused chakra into their ears and they could hear light snoring from the ceiling. "Damn that girl and her poisons," Tsunade thought to herself, sighing. Hinata never missed an opportunity to test out any new poison she had. "Let's just say I got an upgrade to my eyes," Naruto cryptically said. Naruto's Sharingan started spinning until it revealed his ordinary Mangekyo. His eyes pulsed and started spinning outwards, shrinking his pupil and forming several rings around the pupil. Naruto's eyes turned to their last level, the Rinnegan, the eyes of the gods. "Rinnegan," Hiruzen said just above a whisper, but loud enough for everyone to hear them. "How the hell do you have those eyes?" Tsunade yelled. She couldn't believe she was seeing those eyes. They were supposed to be legend, nothing more than a myth. "These eyes are achieved when you mix the blood of a senju with an Uchiha," Naruto explained, and Tsunade remained silent, processing the information. Naruto then proceeded to explain what his eyes could do and how he unlocked them. "What's next?" Tsunade asked the Byakugan. Tsunade asked, shaking her head. Actually, Hiruzen started gathering the attention to him. If Naruto and Hinata have kids, the two jutsus might fuse together, Hiruzen stated, getting blushes from both teenagers. They may have been sleeping together, but starting a family was a big step that they weren't ready to take yet. "Anything else?" Tsunade asked, thinking the surprises would be over by now. "Actually yes," Naruto said, and the space around him started spinning. From his eyes came out 6 figures. They were Senju Hashirama, Senju Mito, Senju Tobirama, Senju Kushina, Namikaze Minato, and Hyuga Hana. Tsunade blinked when she saw everyone in front of her. "What did I tell about drinking, young lady?" Mito said to her daughter, who had her eyes widened. "Damn, this is some good stuff," Tsunade said, picking the bottle next to her. She looked to her left to see Hiruzen on the floor drooling. "I told you were always too soft on her," Tobirama said, crossing his arms and looking at his brother. "I really have to stop drinking," Tsunade said, throwing the bottle into the garbage. Tsunade, Jiraiya started. "They are real and alive," Jiraiya said, and Tsunade turned to stare at her father, Senju Hashirama. "How about you give a hug to your old man?" Hashirama asked, opening his arms. Tsunade did what a sane and normal person would and fainted, smacking her forehead against the desk, making everyone's sweat drop. "That went well," Naruto said, and the others couldn't help but to chuckle. 1 hour later. Both Hiruzen and Tsunade started stirring. They opened their eyes, thinking everything that had happened was nothing more than a dream. "I really have to stop drinking," Tsunade muttered to herself until she looked at her office. Hinata was talking with Mito and Hana, probably some girl stuff. Minato was talking with Tobirama, go figure. The man that hated the Uchihas above everything was chatting with the son of Madara himself. Naruto was arm wrestling with Hashirama, with the exception that Hashirama was using wood and Naruto a chain. Just a plain normal day in Konoha. Smack thumb. Everyone turned just in time to see Tsunade's head smack against her desk again and Hiruzen dropping to the floor. They all sweat dropped inside, thinking it would take another hour until they woke up again. Around 5 minutes later, both of them woke up again, but this time they stayed conscious. Explained, Tsunade said, rubbing her temples. "The true power of my eyes allows me to create anything I want," Naruto started. "The only limits is my imagination. Using their blood I found in the abandoned lab of Orochimaru a couple years ago, I used the Rinnegan's power to create new bodies for them. Once I had that, I brought their souls from the pure world and placed them into the bodies I've made. Basically, I can do anything I wish. I can create anything, bring back anyone," Naruto explained, and Tsunade just nodded. But Naruto started, "I'm going to be responsible with this power. I can't just start bringing back people and stop everyone from dying. As much as it pains me, I have to let nature run its course," Naruto sadly said. While Naruto had the power to pretty much do anything he wanted, he knew he couldn't. Even then, he would be playing God by judging who should live and die. So Brat Tobirama started getting a tick mark from him. "Are you going to explain why you brought us back?" "You said you would explain once we got back," Tobirama said, and Naruto sighed and gathered his thoughts. "It all began 17 years ago when the Kyuubi attacked Konoha," Naruto said, and looked towards his father and mother to explain. "I'll spare you the details and hit the highlights," Minato said, taking a deep breath and gathering his thoughts. "It all started when Naruto was being born. Kushina's delivery time and location was a very well-kept secret. Somehow this masked man found out and managed to slip through both the Anbu and the barrier I set up. He claimed to Uchiha Madara, but I knew very well my father's chakra signature, so it wasn't him, although his chakra somehow felt familiar," Minato explained. "He calls himself Tobi," Naruto added, and Minato nodded. "Tobi seems to have this Kamui ability like Naruto, which means that he's definitely an Uchiha and he has the Mangekyo. Tobi took Naruto as hostage to split me from Kushina. He then removed Kurama from her and proceeded to attack Konoha. In the end, I faced off against him and drove him away, sealing Kurama inside Naruto." Minato finished his explanation. "Does anyone have any idea as to this Tobi character is?" Tobirama asked, but everyone shook their heads. "No, but he can use the Makuten," Naruto said, and Hashirama's eyes widened. "What?" Hashirama asked. "No one has ever been able to do it. Besides, he's an Uchiha, right?" Hashirama asked, confused. "I'm an Uchiha as well as Senju, so that doesn't apply." Although when I felt his chakra and after consulting with Tsunade-bachan we concluded that he somehow implanted cells from your previous body to gain access to your bloodline, Naruto explained, and Hashirama nursed his head. The real problem is that he belongs to an organization called Akatsuki. They are a group of strong shinobi that are after the Baijuo. That's the reason why I brought you back, to help defend the world against this group, to give you all a second chance, but most of all to prevent Orochimaru from using the Edo Tensei and forcing you to as well, Naruto explained, and everyone nodded. I still don't know who the leader is, Jiraiya said, sighing as his soy network was drawing blanks. Do you think it might be this Toby character? Minato asked. I don't know. While he's very strong, every other member is as well, and we don't even have a complete list of all their members, Jiraiya explained. So, where do we go from this? Tobirama asked, and everyone turned to Tsunade. Well, Tsunade started tilting back on her chair. I don't suppose any one of you wants to take the hat back? Tsunade asked, and they shook their heads. I can't exactly have you running around the village when you are supposed to be dead and buried, Tsunade said, glaring at Naruto, who shrugged her off. What do you propose? Hiruzen asked curiously, and Tsunade sighed, tilting back on her chair, rubbing the bridge of her nose, deep in thought. Like I said, I can't have you running around Konoha, and I can't place you in Anbu, Tsunade started. I'm thinking of creating a brand new group or division focused on dealing with the Akatsuki, Tsunade said, an afterthought. Like Anbu? Minato asked, and Tsunade nodded. A mix between Anbu and the Seven Swordsmen of the Mist. It will a group comprise of Konoha's elite shinobi. Your primary objective will be fighting against the Akatsuki with a few side missions, Tsunade explained. Of course you will need to wear masks so you don't get recognized, Tsunade finished. That's good and all, but our jutsus tend to stand off, Hashirama said, thinking of his wood jutsu. Minato had his Hirashin, Tobirama could pull water from the atmosphere, Naruto used his Fen, which was quite known, Gar had his sand, and so on. Let them suspect. As long as they don't know your identity it's fine, Tsunade said, and they nodded. Senju Naruto, Hyuga Hinata, Senju Hashirama, Senju Mito, Senju Tobirama, Namikaze Minato, Senju Kushina, and Sabaku no Gaara. You'll be the 8 dragons of the leaf. You answer only to me, your Hokage, understood? Tsunade asked. Hi, they all chorused. Do we have any special type of outfit like the Anbu? Naruto asked, curious. All of the Anbu always wore black pants and sleeveless black shirt with a metal chest plate over it and a small sword strapped to their back. The purpose of the Anbu was to make everyone look like each other in order not to reveal the identity of the Anbu. The Anbu often took very dangerous missions and with masks who used to protect them from any enemies seeking out revenge against the Anbu itself or any family he might have. That's the reason why Naruto never took his mother's name so soon. While having powerful shinobi out on the open favors the village since they broadcast to have powerful shinobi, it also has the drawback that, if any enemy wants revenge, they know exactly who to target. Probably, let me think about it and I'll tell you all later at home, Tsunade said, and they nodded. Naruto, Hana said, getting his attention. Not that I'm not happy, but I'm not particularly strong. Why did you bring me back? Hana asked, confused. Besides the fact you make my princess happy, Naruto said, pulling Hinata close and getting a blush from Hinata and awe sounds from both Mito and Kushina. Even though Hinata-chan was expelled from her clan, she still wants to help the branch house, and I'm going to help her with her dream. When we are finished with the Hyuga clan, both houses will be under the same roof with you as clan leader, Naruto explained, getting a cheek kiss from Hinata making him rub the back of his head. She really found good men in Naruto-kun, Hana thought to herself, smiling at the pair of lovebirds in the room. Hinata was clinging to Naruto's right arm. To be young and in love, Hana thought to herself, remembering Hiyashi. You know I can't let you interfere in clan business, right? You're a clan head yourself, Tsunade asked in a serious voice. I know the laws very well, Naruto started waving her off. That's why they won't know what happened until it's too late, Naruto said, chuckling, and Hinata giggling at their wonderful plan. Once they made their move, the Hyuga clan will be in for a rude awakening. Poor Hiyashi, Kushina thought, looking at Naruto's eyes. That glint was the same both of them had when they were planning any prank. And the fact Naruto was laughing like a maniac was already proof enough. Kushina just hopped. Naruto didn't destroy the Hyuga compound, accidentally. That reminds me, Tsunade said, gathering their attention to them. The Uchiha compound now belongs to you, Naru-chan, as well, Tsunade said, getting wide eyes from him. What? Why? Naruto asked, confused. You and Minato are the last Uchihas in the village. Even though you never officially belong to it, the law states that as long as an Uchiha is alive, all possessions from money, jutsus or property belong to them, Tsunade explained, and Naruto sighed. One question, Minato said, and Tsunade motioned him to continue. Where are we going to live? The village knows that Naruto lives at the Senju compound, and if they found out that my house was being used it would raise many suspicions, Minato stated, getting a nod from Naruto. Like always, everyone turned to Tsunade, who was cursing her luck. I have an idea, Hashirama said, making everyone focus on him. Why don't we all live at the Senju compound? It has more than enough rooms for all of us. Besides, that is what I wanted when I founded the village with Madara. For both the Senju and the Uchiha clans to coexist peacefully and live happily, Hashirama said, placing his arms over Minato and Tobirama's shoulders. I can go with that, Naruto said, happy that his family just got bigger. Now that everything is over, how about we go for lunch? Tsunade asked, getting up from her chair. Ramen, Hashirama, Kushina and Naruto said, crossing their arms in front of their chest. Minato just chuckled at their antics. It seemed that it skipped a generation with Tsunade. Typical Senju attitude, Minato said, chuckling, and got widened eyes from both Tsunade and Hiruzen. I never heard you talk like that, Hiruzen said, looking at the fourth Hokage. I never told anyone of my father, so I kept it to myself. All that works, Minato said, rubbing the back of his head, but since Naruto exposed his heritage I don't have to hold it anymore. Besides, it's true. From the stories my father always told me about Konoha and the Senju is that the Senju were brash, loud and addicted to ramen especially, and I quote Hashirama baka apostrophe ... No offense, Minato said, chuckling towards Hashirama, whose eye was twitching. You could have told me at least, Hiruzen muttered under his breath, but Minato heard him anyhow. He's right, Minato. I was your Jounin sensei. I took you as my apprentice, Jiraiya said, and Minato sighed, knowing it was true. It was a request from my father. He told me to keep my eyes a secret. I activated them when I was 5 years old, trying to save my mother. When I got back to the leaf, I started hiding them under a small genjutsu. I did it for so many years it became instinctive to me, Minato explained. The only person who ever knew was Kushina-chan, and that was because my genjutsu slipped when my Mangekyo activated back when Kushina-chan was kidnapped, Minato said, sighing, making Jiraiya's jaw drop. You have a Mangekyo? Jiraiya asked, and Minato nodded, channeling more chakra into his eyes until they started spinning and the komas moving erratically. They stopped spinning and his eyes were still blood red, with 4 arrows pointing to the middle of the eyes, overlapping a small circle around the pupil. What can you do with those eyes? Hiruzen asked, curious. The standard ones. Tsukuyomi, Amaterasu, and the first stage of Susanoo. I never really invested much time into my Mangekyo. I couldn't really use my Hirashin while had my Susanoo active, and I wasn't gifted with Naruto's Kamui ability, Minato pouted while Naruto chuckled. If I had told you that my father was Uchiha Madara, would you have given me that hat? Minato seriously asked to Hiruzen. I'm not one to judge, but most likely not, Hiruzen answered truthfully, and Minato nodded knowingly. The same can be said for you, Jiraiya-sensei, Minato said, and Jiraiya sadly nodded. While they tend not to judge someone by another person's actions, there would always be something lying around, whether it be caution or simply some distrust. It's in the past, let's forget it, Tsunade said, and everyone nodded. I know very well what my father, uncle, mother, daughter and Minato can do. However, I still want to see you three in action, Tsunade said, pointing towards Gaara, Hinata and Naruto, who raised their eyebrows. The three of us together could take on the whole village and win. Two shinobi who were Jinchuriki plus an extremely skilled and powerful medic, Naruto said, and Tsunade got an evil glint in her eyes, making Naruto gulp. That's why I'll be taking away your most reliant and powerful skills to see what you can do when your aces are gone, Tsunade said, rubbing her hands together. Gaara will fight without his sand. Hinata without her Byakugan, and you won't be using your Hirashin and Sharingan or above, Tsunade said, smirking evilly. You're on, Naruto said confidently. Who are we fighting against? Naruto asked. Tsunade-chan, do you think it's wise teaming up 3 S-rank shinobi? Hiruzen asked. A S-rank shinobi was dangerous on his own, but adding 2 more and using teamwork would be devastating against anyone who had to fight them. Yes, we took most of their power and I just want to see them in action, Tsunade said when she heard a knock on the door. Come in, Tsunade said, not remembering she had her family on her office, and Kakashi walked in. Nice to see you again, Kakashi, Minato said, turning to his student. Kakashi rose his head from his book to look at the person that greeted him. Thumb. Kakashi toppled to the ground like a sack of potatoes. I should have known, Minato said, shaking his head. A few minutes later Kakashi woke up and Tsunade explained everything that happened, and Kakashi swore secrecy. So who are we fighting against? Naruto asked, and Tsunade smirked. Training Ground 7 Tsunade, Jiraiya, Kakashi, Hiruzen, and the 8 dragons were all at the training grounds ready for the battle that was about to ensue. Of the 8 dragons, all but Naruto and Hinata weren't wearing a mask. So who are we fighting against? Naruto asked as the only known for sure was Hatake Kakashi, who was by now an S-rank shinobi. He never was one because of his low chakra pool due to his Sharingan being constantly active. But now that he can activate his Sharingan, he finally managed to take the spot. Tsunade pointed at the horizon and Naruto noticed several persons approaching. They were Mitarashi Yonko, Uzuki Yugao, Kato Shizune, Momochi Zabuza, Yuki Haku, Yuhi Kurenai, Sarutobi Asuma, Ebisu, and Mitogai. "What rank is Haku-chan?" Naruto asked. Elite Jounin Tsunade replied, smirking. "So we are facing one S-rank shinobi and 9 elite Jounins," Naruto said, running the math in his head and thinking about several scenarios. "Scared?" Tsunade mockingly asked. "Not really," Naruto replied and waited for them to gather up. "Long time no see. Kurenai-sensei, Haku-chan, Zabuza-sensei," Naruto said, greeting his fellow senseis and friends. "Oh yes. I get to taste your delicious blood," Anko said, jumping in the air while everyone's sweat dropped. "I heard you got stronger, brat," Zabuza said, getting a nod from Naruto. "Who are they?" Zabuza asked, pointing towards the masked man that will be watching the battle. "Don't you think it defeats the purpose of them having a mask if I tell who they are?" Naruto rhetorically asked, but Zabuza shrugged his shoulders and left it at that. "Like I've informed all of you. You are here to test Naruto, Hinata, and Gaara. Each one of you has special skills towards one area of the shinobi field." Tsunade explained and every nodded. "Do it," Tsunade said to the 8 dragons. Minato, Hashirama, Tobirama and Hiruzen all jumped away from the fighters, leaving a large area. Shiisuke, all 4 shinobi said, and large red barrier erupted from the field, trapping every contestant inside. "Why a barrier?" Ebisu asked, curious. "So you don't destroy anything outside of the training field," Tsunade explained. "But we don't have jutsus powerful enough for that," Yugao stated, confused. "I was talking to Naruto," Tsunade said. Yugao paled when she looked at Naruto, who was grinning like a madman. "The rules stand as I explained. No sound for Gaara, no Byakugan for Hinata and no Hirashin, Sharingan and above for Naruto." Hajime, Tsunade said from outside the barrier as she watched everyone blur towards each other. "So Hiruzen started. Who do you think will win?" Hiruzen asked. 9 elite Jounins and 1 S-rank against 3 S-rank shinobi. "Judging by the ranks they seems even out," Tsunade said, looking towards the battle. Hash inside the barrier hash. Each group was facing each other. Everyone was stopped in the same place, eyeing the opposition. Naruto's stance was relaxed, emotionless, his breathing was calm and even, his only movement was his hair being carried away by a small gust of wind, deep blue eyes staring at his opponents. "Such aura," Yugao thought to herself, mentally gulping. "He's not even releasing chakra and I'm shaking. Get yourself under control, you're an elite Jounin, for crying out loud," Ebisu thought to himself. Naruto wasn't releasing chakra or killer intent. He was just there looking at them, and yet he seemed like an unmovable object. It was like he knew he was going to win, but it wasn't arrogance, it was confidence. "I'm already sweating and he didn't even move," Asuma thought to himself. They were 10 shinobi of elite Jounin level and above, and a single brat of 17 was making them freeze in the spot. Delicious, Anko was thinking to herself, his blood should still top quality Kokaku. Suddenly Naruto's right hand slowly moved and everyone tensed, getting ready for an attack. Naruto made a single hand seal and was enveloped in a cloud of smoke. In his place was now a naked girl with 2 blonde pigtails. She had an hourglass figure with DD cup breasts. She had smoke around her covering all the important parts, but not enough so that man couldn't extrapolate the rest. "Ebiku Naruko-kun," in a sexy voice posing towards the elite Jounin. "Give me some sugar," Naruto said, opening his arms towards him. Ebisu's reaction was instantaneous. He plummeted into the ground with blood pouring from his nose. "Looks like I get first blood," Naruto said, laughing at the others' reactions, as he dispelled his henge. He picked up Ebisu and flashed towards Tsunade and dropped him next to her, still unconscious from blood loss. "The brat is a genius," he took out an elite Jounin with a transformation, Anko to herself, grinning. "Want help?" Kurama asked as he woke up from his slumber. "Where's the fun in that?" Naruto rhetorically asked. Naruto hands blurred towards the horse seal and everyone tensed for real this time. He took a deep breath and said, "Katen, go Kamekiyaku." Naruto needed the chakra inside his lungs, converting it into fire and shaping it. Naruto unleashed a gigantic wall of flames covering most of the field where they were fighting. "Holy!" all of the Jounin thought before half of them blurred through hand seals. Hash outside of the barrier hash. That's Madara's jutsu," Hiruzen said, gobsmacked. "Well, he is my father," Minato stated. "But, who taught it to him?" Hiruzen asked. This jutsu was Madara's trademark jutsu. As his fan, it couldn't be copied as Madara refined it to only needing a single hand seal for him to perform. I taught it to him. I saw Madara Baka doing it plenty of times, so I told Naruto what I knew of it and he figured out the rest, Hashirama explained. You taught it to him? Hiruzen slowly asked. That's not the only thing I taught him, Hashirama said, smirking while Hiruzen paled, thinking what his teacher could have taught him. Naruto had plenty of powerful jutsus behind his belt, and with Hashirama backing him up he could only hope no one died. Then again, if anyone died, Naruto could bring them back, so nothing to worry about. Inside the barrier Suten, Suijin Heki Kakashi, Zabuzain Haku said before unleashing a torrent of water to combat the wall of flames that was scorching the ground and coming towards them. The water clashed with fire, but it wasn't enough to put out the flames, so they just surrounded themselves with water to prevent any damage. The rest of the grounds were scorched, making them lifeless. 3 jutsus of a stronger nature against a single jutsu of a weaker one, and yet we were overpowered, Kakashi thought to himself as the steam was spreading around the field. Fuuten, Daitapa Asuma said, taking a deep breath and exhaling a gust of wind that blew the steam away and provided much needed vision. The Jounin looked towards their opponents to find everyone missing. Tsutenjaku, Hinata said as she was coming down from the sky with her right leg raised. Everyone Jounin scattered away as Hinata smashed her heel on the ground, making it explode, forming a gigantic crater. I wonder what we did to Tsunade-sama to award such fate, Kurenai thought while crying anime tears. Dokugari Shizune said, pumping her lungs full with chakra and launching a mist of purple poison towards Naruto, Hinata, and Gaara. Fuuten, Mugen Sajin Daitapa, Gaara said before taking a deep breath and releasing a strong gust of wind that blew the mist away, making it easily disperse and thus making it harmless. Konoha Gariki Senpu Guy shouted as he appeared next to Naruto, spinning. Naruto brought his right hand up and caught Guy's shin, stopping his momentum. He stopped it, with a single hand? Guy thought to himself with his eyes widened. Naruto had stopped Guy's leg and slammed his own left leg on the ground. A small earth wall rose from the ground, defending him from a couple of senbon that Shizune had thrown. Shinayashi Wanko said, sending multiple snakes that wrapped themselves around Naruto and brought him close to her. Now for your blood, Anko said, and Naruto grinned before started glowing. Naruto exploded, sending Anko tumbling into the ground and tearing up most of her coat. Naruto's hand popped out of the ground just behind Asuma, who jumped back in time to avoid them. Asuma threw his daggers powered with wind chakra, but Naruto simply swinched his fan, making them fall into the ground. Kaden, Gukakyu Uno Jutsu, Kakashi said, and sent a fireball towards Naruto, who waited for it. The moment it came close to him, Naruto swinched his fan and dispersed the fireball into nothingness. Ramdog Rat Snake Dragon. Haijutsu, Mugen no Ame, Hinata whispered, crouching on the floor. Clouds started gathering in the sky, covering what was once a beautiful and sunny day. A couple of seconds later, a few drops of water fell from the sky until it began to increase, turning it into heavy rain. Rain? Kakashi asked, surprised, until he saw Hinata raising from the ground. This rain is laced with chakra, Kakashi thought to himself as to why the rain had chakra. It was generated from the clouds and not from chakra, so it shouldn't have any trace of chakra in it. It's eating away my chakra, Kakashi thought, shocked. Any drop of this rain that hit him would absorb a small bit of his chakra, which multiplied by thousands of water drops that were falling wouldn't be good. Water started gathering and spiraling around Hinata, forming a water tornado of sorts. Suten Suishuha, Hinata said, and the water exploded from her position, going towards the Jounin. She pulled water from the air, Haku gasped to herself. Outside of the barrier She pulled water from the air, Tsunade blurted out, I thought only Tobiramoji-san could do it. Did you teach her or something? Tsunade asked to her uncle. Not quite. It can't be taught, as only I can do it. I have high water affinity, that is why I can pull water from even the driest atmosphere. While Hinata has good water affinity, it still isn't to my level, so she found a way around it. She uses a jutsu to create clouds, thus making it rain. As it rains, the air becomes saturated with water, thus allowing Hinata to pull water from it, Tobirama explained. Amazing. She truly found a way to eliminate the weakness of water users without chakra expenditure, Hiruzen said, and Tobirama nodded. Indeed. If there wasn't water, the water users would need to make water from their chakra, which would spend a lot of it. Thanks to this jutsu, Hinata is able to draw water from the ambient in a way similar to mine without wasting so much chakra, Tobirama explained, and Hiruzen nodded. Although that is not everything that it does, Tobirama started getting raised eyebrows from the rest. While the rain is naturally generated, Hinata can coat it with her chakra, creating 2 additional effects. The first one is a sensing effect. Anything that the rain touches, Hinata knows of it. In fact, this jutsu is similar to the Byakugan. While it doesn't allow to see chakra, it allows to sense any person's position as long they are in contact with the rain, Tobirama explained, and Tsunade had her eyes widened. She really hit the jackpot with that girl. The second one is far more deadlier. This rain eats any chakra that it comes in contact with, that isn't the same signature as the creator of the jutsu or Hinata's allies. As long as the rain is failing, Hinata has water to use, knows the location of every single shinobi in the rain's range and slowly eats away the chakra of the enemy. Hinata can also absorb the chakra the rain stole by touching the water on the ground, Tobirama explained, and Hiruzen whistled. This jutsu employed at a large scale, like war, could change the battlefield. Any drawbacks? Tsunade asked. This jutsu seemed too good to be true. None whatsoever, Tobirama chuckled. The only problem is it requires a very high degree of chakra control. So high that not even I can do it, Tobirama said, shaking his head. Hiruzen and Tsunade could only nod and turn their attention to the battlefield. Inside the barrier. The water shocked washed away through the battlefield, ripping out rocks from the grounds and destroying trees. Since there was a barrier around the training field, the water didn't disperse and left a small layer on the ground. Guys, Kakashi yelled, regrouping. This rain is slowly eating away our chakra, Kakashi explained, and everyone nodded, thinking exactly what they could do. What do we do? Kurenai asked, worried as she didn't have particularly high chakra levels. I'm thinking about it, Kakashi said when he felt a chakra spike. Heads up, Kakashi yelled. Suten, Suryudan no Jutsu. Naruto and Hinata both shouted at the same time, creating two water dragons. What? Naruto never could perform such high-level water jutsus. The Rinnegan, of course, Kakashi thought to himself, going through hand seals and slamming his hands on the ground. Doden, Doryuki, Kakashi said, and an earth wall rose from the ground to block the water attacks. Mikazuki no Mai, Yugao said as she multiplied after images due to her speed. Due to the rain, Hinata could tell exactly which one was the real and blocked her sword with her daggers. Hinata parried the sword with her daggers, making Yugao lose her balance. Hinata took advantage of her error and punched her, sending her flying back into the arms of Anko, who caught her before she could hit the ground. Yugao coughed and began breathing harshly. While Hinata didn't punch her at full power not to kill her, she wasn't going to let Yugao get away with a simple love tap. Megan, Jubakusatsu, Kurenai whispered as she prepared her genjutsu. She focused her chakra and tried to catch Hinata in the genjutsu as she was clashing blows with Yugao. A few moments later, nothing happened. My genjutsu isn't working, Kurenai said, shocked. It's the rain, Kakashi said, shocked with what he was seeing with his Sharingan. You need to release chakra into the air so it can affect Hinata's network. The rain eats away any chakra in the air, rendering all non-Sharingan genjutsu worthless, Kakashi explained, and Kurenai cursed her luck. Now she was pretty much useless. We need to get rid of the rain then, Kurenai said, and Kakashi's sweat dropped. Easier said than done. How the hell could he even stop rain in the first place? I'll give it a shot, Asuma said, stepping forward and pumping his lungs with chakra katen. Haze Kishu no Jutsu, Asuma said, breathing out a cloud of ash. The cloud spread through the whole field and Asuma made a spark with his teeth, igniting the cloud into flames. Naruto swinched his fan to avoid getting hit with the flames, protecting Hinata and Gaara. All done, Asuma proudly said, dusting off his hands. The rain seemed to be gone until it started to fall again. His attack only momentarily stopped the rain. This sucks, Asuma said, lowering his head in defeat. Raiten, Jaibashi, Naruto said as his hands sparkled with electricity. Naruto released a wave of electricity that spread through the whole field using the water from the rain as a medium. A few Jounin were hit as they couldn't dodge. Fuuten, Daitapa, Asuma shouted, releasing a gust of wind to temporarily push the rain away and disperse the lightning attack. This might work, Haku said, going through hand seal's ice release. Freezing tundra, Haku said, and started lowering the temperature outside considerably. Moments later, all the water started freezing and the rain turned into snow, finally disabling it. Great job, Haku, Kakashi said, commending Haku on a job well done. Haku, by lowering the temperature, managed to stop the rain. Damn, that's cold, Kakashi said, shivering. Now he didn't know which was best, rain or some freezing nightmare. Yugao, behind you, Kurenai yelled as Hinata appeared behind Yugao and striking her in the back. Yugao fell forward with a thump sound. Naruto flashed outside, delivering Yugao the Tsunade to heal. Makyo Hyoshu, Haku whispered as the whole ground turned into reflective ice. The ice covered the whole training field. Ice release, ice step, Haku said, and disappeared into the ground. Haku popped out behind Naruto and threw a couple of senbons. Naruto brought his fan to his right side and blocked it. As he blocked them, Naruto jumped back to avoid another hail of needles sent from another location. Haku-chan improved her jutsu. She's able to move through her mirrors on the ground, appearing anywhere in the battlefield. With the right level of control, this jutsu can become as deadly as Maharaja Naruto thought to himself. Apparently Haku also grew into a powerful shinobi in her own way. However, Naruto thought taking a deep breath and focusing on his senses. Haku popped out on another place, but Naruto was already expecting hit and flexed his right arm forward, sending a chain towards Haku. The chain wrapped itself around her legs and circled her arms, pinning her to the place. "Your jutsu isn't instantaneous, so I can feel where you pop out," Naruto said in thought. "Every jutsu has a weakness, you just need to find it. And apparently my chains also have a weakness," Naruto thought, shocked as he watched Haku release ice chakra into the chains. The chains started to crack as the ice was making them brittle. Luckily for Naruto, Hinata realized it in time and appeared next to Haku, giving her a Juoken strike and knocking Haku out. "Here comes the rain again," Kakashi muttered beneath his breath. With Haku out, the temperature started rising again and the snow turned into water once again. "Kushios no Jutsu," Anko said, slamming her hand on the ground. A giant brown snake puffed into existence with Anko standing on top of his head. "Konohaka Ganshugai," said, and he appeared behind Naruto, with Zabuza in tow getting ready to behead to Naruto. Naruto's head detached from his shoulders at the same time. Guy smashed his elbow into Naruto's back. Naruto exploded, releasing a lightning chakra into both shinobi, who jumped away slightly twitching. Naruto sent his chains towards the snake, making them wrap themselves around the snake. "Fuuten," Shinku Agara said, pumping his lungs with chakra. He released multiple wind's blades that sliced the snake, making it dispel in smoke. "I'm dead," Anko said, falling to the ground face first with chakra exhaustion. Summoning the snake was her last move. With the rain draining everyone's chakra away, she was the first to succumb to it. "This isn't going well," Kurenai said, taking deep breaths. Anything they threw at them, they could easily block it or deflect it, and they weren't even using their best weapons. And the rain also had done a number on her chakra levels were getting low as well. "Asuma," Kakashi said, and Asuma nodded, going through hand seals. "Shuriken Cage Bunshine no Jutsu," Asuma said, throwing a couple shurikens of multiplied into hundreds. Naruto, Hinata and Gaara stayed put and watched as most of the shuriken dispelled mid-air as the rain had eaten the chakra that powered the shadow shurikens. "Reikiri," Kakashi yelled, popping out of the ground behind Naruto with his hands sparkling with lightning. Naruto didn't even move as Kakashi tried to thrust his hand into Naruto. Keyword being tried, as the Reikiri dispelled from the rain and was nothing but a small punch to Naruto. Naruto used Kakashi's shock to take advantage. Naruto caught Kakashi's wrist and flinged him over his shoulder, kicking him away. "This rain jutsu really is something else," Zabuza said. Zabuza was said to a master of water ninjutsu, but even him had to accept the magnificence and simplicity of this jutsu. "My turn," Naruto said before bending slight down and disappearing. "Fast," Zabuza whispered as he brought his arm up to block a kick from Naruto, who appeared next to him. Naruto placed his hands on the ground for leverage and kicked with his other leg, making Zabuza burst into water. Naruto jumped back to dodge a punch from Guy as Zabuza materialized next to him. "Fuuten no Jutsu," Gaara said, and released a cloud of dust covering everyone. Vision of Naruto and Hinata. Hinata used the rain to track the movements and appeared next to Zabuza. Hinata cocked her fist and Zabuza brought the flat side of his sword to block. While the sword blocked most of the force, Zabuza was still thrown backwards and crashed into the ground unconscious. "Hash outside the barrier, hash. They are dropping like flies," Tsunade said, chuckling. "I told you about putting 3S rank shinobi against elite jounins," Hiruzin replied, shaking his head at his successor's antics. "It was to make sure they could hold their own without their best techniques," Tsunade said. "Hash inside the barrier, hash." "Kirigakure no Jutsu," Hinata said, and a heavy mist started appearing, covering all the battlefield. Hinata crouched and took out a few Shinbans as she felt the enemy's location. "Fuuten, Daitapa," Asuma said, blowing the mist away. Asuma kneeled as he felt his chakra getting low. Hinata appeared behind everyone as she used the water in the ground to move. She threw her poisoned Shinbans at Shizune and Kurenai, trying to take the medic and support fighters. Kakashi caught the movement with his Sharingan and flashed through hand seals. "Shuriken Cage Bunshine no Jutsu," Kakashi said, sending multiple shurikens to intercept the Shinbans as he moved into another position but was body blocked by Gaara. "Fuuten, fan wind," Naruto said, swinging his fan and blowing the shurikens away. Hinata's Senbon hit both Kurenai and Shizune, who weren't expecting them. "Poison, damn it, IGG got high tea," Shizune thought as she closed her eyes and fell forward. Kurenai dispelled into pink flowers. Kurenai had managed to perform an escape genjutsu at the last moment possible, though her illusion was quickly dispelled from the rain showing where Kurenai was. Naruto blurred towards his sensei and knocked her out with a chop to the back of the head. Gaara disengaged from Kakashi and jumped back to regroup with Hinata and Naruto. There was only 3 members left on each side. "This isn't looking good," Asuma said, taking deep breaths. "Shadow clone jutsu," Naruto said, and a single clone popped into existence and crouched on the floor in lotus position, meditating. "What's he doing?" Kakashi wondered, and though as he also was breathing a bit heavily. There was nothing they do to counter this rain as it was eating their chakra away. "Dokigiri," Hinata said as she pumped her lungs with chakra and released a purple-looking mist towards the 3 remaining jounin. "Phew, Uten, die," Asuma said, but coughed and fell to the ground without chakra and taking deep breaths. Kakashi appeared next to him and shined away to safety. "Guy!" Kakashi yelled, and Guy nodded, punching his fists together. "Kaimon, Kyumin, Simon, Shomen, Tomon, Kimon, Kyo-omen Kai!" Guy shouted, opening the first 7 gates. "Asakajaku!" Guy shouted, sending countless punches towards the incoming poison mist. The punches were so fast that the friction with the air caused fireballs. The fireballs collided with the mist and erased the poison completely. "Asuma is out," Kakashi said, giving Asuma so that Naruto could take him out of the barrier. "Looks like we are the last ones," Kakashi said, looking at Guy, who had a blue aura around him.
"Let's take this up a notch," Naruto said as
Kaimon, Kyumin, Simon, Shomen, Tomon, Kimon, Kyo-omen Kai! Guy shouted, opening the first 7 gates. "Asakajaku!" Guy shouted, sending countless punches towards the incoming poison mist. The punches were so fast that the friction with the air caused fireballs. The fireballs collided with the mist and erased the poison completely. "Asuma is out," Kakashi said, giving Asuma so that Naruto could take him out of the barrier. "Looks like we are the last ones," Kakashi said, looking at Guy, who had a blue aura around him. "Let's take this up a notch," Naruto said as his shadow clone dispelled. Naruto closed his eyes, gaining several red markings in his face. Naruto gained red pigment markings around and under his eyes, as well 2 concentric red circles in the middle of his forehead. His blue eyes were gone and replaced with deep blood red ones, reminiscing of the Sharingan. "Hash outside of the barrier." "Hash? You taught him Shinjutsu?" Hiruzen asked, paling at the thought. By using Shinjutsu, Naruto's jutsu were on a completely whole new level. "I did, but it started from an accident. Naruto used his Rinnegan and tried to absorb my chakra while I was using Shinjutsu and nearly killed him. After that I taught him how to gather and control natural energy, and he's a complete master of it like me." Hashirama proudly said that his descendant was skilled like he was. "Ah boy," Hiruzen muttered under his breath. "Hash inside the barrier." "Hash? Say Shinjutsu?" Kakashi stuttered as he saw Naruto's aura with his Sharingan skyrocket. Naruto blurred away from his position and engaged Guy, with his gates open, his a fierce taijutsu brawl. Guy's open gates seemed to be holding off Naruto using Shinjutsu rather well. They both were exchanging powerful punches and kicks that released shockwaves each time. Naruto threw a punch and Guy tilted his head back to allow it to pass with getting it. Big mistake as Guy is flung backwards by Naruto's Shinjutsu attack. "Dynamic entry!" Guy shouted as he regained his bearings from Naruto's Shinjutsu enhanced punch. Guy jumped high into the air and flexed his right leg forward, plummeting towards Naruto, who braced himself. Naruto sidestepped Guy and caught his leg, swinging him and throwing him backwards again. Guy backflipped and landed safely, breathing heavily. "Your flames of youth shine brightly, young Naruto!" Guy shouted, panting and getting ready for his final attack. "Hirudora!" Guy shouted, punching forward as fast as he could, distorting the air pressure around his fist. However, Naruto was already there to match Guy's punch with his own. Naruto poured the rest of his Shinjutsu chakra into one last punch, clashing it with Guy's. A massive shockwave erupted from their clash that even the ground shook like an earthquake. Hinata, Gaara and Kakashi, who were fighting, had to stop and secure themselves to prevent getting blown away as well. The shockwave ceased and Hinata focused her eyes to find Naruto standing near the down form of Guy. "That was some attack, Guy," Naruto said, wiping sweat from his forehead. Naruto turned around to the last man standing, Hatake Kakashi. "Last man standing, Kakashi-sensei," Naruto said as he regrouped with his team. Hinata crouched on the ground and absorbed the chakra she had stolen to refill her reserves. "I'm done," Kakashi said, crouching on the floor, almost depleted from chakra. "How about a final clash?" Kakashi said, gesturing to his hand. Naruto nodded and told Hinata to disable her water jutsu, making the clouds disappear and the sun to shine through. Both Naruto and Kakashi blurred towards each other. "Reikiri! Fuuten, Rasengan!" Both of them shouted as their attacks clashed, and in a bright flash was all over. Naruto was still standing while Kakashi was taking a nap on the ground with his right arm smoking. The barrier was dropped and Tsunade picked up Kakashi, dropping him with the other unconscious Jounins by the tree. "So you completed the Rasengan as well?" Tsunade said, and Naruto nodded. "Yes, though that is the low-powered version, otherwise I would kill Kakashi-sensei," Naruto said, and Tsunade nodded slowly. "Low-powered, sure," Tsunade thought to herself, looking at the crater on their clash. "So do we pass?" Naruto asked, grinning, and Tsunade shook her head in disbelief. Yes, you are great," Tsunade replied. "Let's go home." Later that day, Senju compound. "Ramen really is food for the gods," Naruto said, rubbing his belly, while Hashirama and Kushina couldn't disagree. The rest of the clan just shook their heads at the amount of bowls they managed to eat. "By the way," Tsunade started, "I found what the dragons will be wearing when on missions," Tsunade said, and everyone raised an eyebrow. Tsunade got up and went away. 5 minutes later, Tsunade returned with a few boxes. She opened the boxes and pulled out what seemed to be some old dusty armor. This armor was constructed from numerous metal plates, formed into multiple protective guards along his body, in particular, chest, shoulders, thighs and forearms. Each collar of his shoulder guards bore the Senju symbol emblazoned on them. "The old Senju clan armor," Tobirama said, picking up his long-lost blue armor. "I thought about using this as your outfit. Of course the Senju clan symbol will be removed and a dragon will be etched in the frontal plate," Tsunade explained, and everyone nodded. "What color do you want your masks and armor?" Tsunade asked. "Dark green," Hashirama replied. "Light blue," Tobirama said. "Black," Mito said. "Yellow," Minato said, grinning. "Blood red," Kushina said. "Purple," Hinata said. "Brown," Gaara said. "Orange?" Tsunade asked towards Naruto, who shook his head, surprising everyone. "Silver," Naruto replied. "The 8 dragons of the leaf are now official," Tsunade said. That's it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and follow me on my other social media accounts. Anime God here, and I'm signing off.